We haven't started. All right, we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 28th, 2023 Select Board meeting. Our meeting is being recorded and broadcast by Cable Access, who is here this evening as well. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, great. We have a couple public hearings tonight, just to let everyone know. The public hearing for Cook's Towing and Transport on East Belcher, the applicant has asked to continue that public hearing. So we will open the public hearing tonight, and if anyone's here for comment, we'll take some brief comments, but just know that that will continue as well to a date that we'll specify later. So with that, is anyone here for citizens input for anything that's not on the agenda? You're here for the one later, Mr. Cook, right?
What's that?
You're here for the one for the agenda item later, right?
Correct.
So we're gonna wait. We have to wait for the public hearing on that one.
Okay.
So anything outside of the agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Anything come in the mailbox? All right. Great. All right. So with that, we may run a little bit ahead of time this evening, just so that everyone knows for the agenda items. Kind of after 7:20, I would expect that the other ones will run a little bit early for police and the town manager's update. So with that, we'll start with the HR update. Liz, if you can come up and introduce yourself. Do we have our sign-in sheet too? We do have a sign-in sheet, and we'll just ask everyone, I know it wasn't out, if you can just put your name on that either now or just before you leave at some point as well.
All right. Good evening,
All right,
Madam
good
Chair.
evening.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Members
How are
of
you?
the board, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me this evening and providing me the opportunity to give you an update and present the Finance Director hiring plan timeline. It's an important role here for the town, so excited to be able to be part of it. So this evening we wanted to present the timeline. We also were looking to appoint a member of the Select Board to the interview panel. We have put together an interview team that includes myself, Bill Keegan, Bill Yukna, and a Select Board member, and an additional municipal finance professional who we are working to solidify that over the next few days, but we have reached out, so I'll be able to provide an update on that. So around March 6th, we're looking to post that position and then review our applications. And then the week of March 20th, myself and Bill Keegan will conduct phone interviews, and then in-person interviews will be conducted during the week of March 27th through April 3rd. The next piece would be April 11th to the 25th. We would have our final interview with the Select Board and vote to conditionally appoint. And then from there, we would then post the Assistant Finance Director position, April 11th to the 25th, conduct contract negotiations with Jamie Kenny, with Clifford and Kenny, and then on April 25th, Select Board will go through that contract negotiations on around the 25th to May 9th. We would approve the Finance Director contract, and then with the plan of July 3rd, a new Finance Director would start, and then around that time frame, the new Assistant Finance Director would start as well. So, any questions on our timeline?
I do have a quick question. So the finance director is our interview, just like the town manager is that we just went through. So that's why we're seeing it in front of us, and we're going to designate someone to go on the board. For the assistant finance director position, had you thought it would be the same hiring team? Do you need someone from the board for that one, or will that just be for the finance director?
Just the finance director.
Just the finance director, okay. Okay. All right, great. I mean, obviously, this is a really important position. The timeline's kind of well laid out. Any other questions?
No, I was just curious, so they're going to be run in parallel, both of these searches?
The thing is that we don't know, because you don't know until
yeah,
the person gets appointed. So if the person happens to be the assistant finance director, of course, then you would have to do that process concurrently or following that, or immediately following that.
But it shows it would post once we pick someone to be that, so it would
Yeah,
kind of be in tandem, I would say.
you can't really commit to it until you know.
Right. Just wondering how you're going to handle that.
Anyone? Yes, Seth, did you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, so I guess I was looking ahead to who was going to,
That's
from,
where I was going next, so.
there you go. All right.
Anyone want to join that?
I'd be happy to do it if
Okay,
that's
everyone
what the
good?
board would.
Okay. Anyone else interested? Are we good with staff? I'm certainly good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, so we just need a motion to appoint Seth to the Finance Director Interview Committee.
Motion to appoint Seth to the Finance Director Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you for doing that, Seth. It's a very interesting process. I'm sure you'll enjoy it after just going
Oh, yeah.
through it for the town manager. All right, and then while we had Liz in here, we thought we would bring her in to talk about a couple other items as well.
Thank you so much. So the next item I wanted to discuss was the seasonal pay plan. One of the first items that I was tasked with joining the town of Foxborough was reviewing our seasonal pay plan in partnership with the Director of Human Services, Mark Craig, and DPW Director Chris Gallagher, and also Libby O'Neill from the library. As a municipality, we do not have to abide by the minimum wage law. And currently, our seasonal wages are below the minimum wage. And after reaching out to some of our comparable towns and also local businesses such as Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, Target, some of the local grocers are paying far more. So we were falling, far behind and wanting to be proactive for our seasonal hires for 2023 and 2024. So we quickly recognized that we needed to raise our pay scale in order to be competitive. We presented our proposed pay plan to the Personnel Board on February 15th. The board unanimously recommended a motion to approve, and this evening we are requesting the Select Board to vote to approve as well.
All right, I have reviewed this. I did watch the Personnel Board. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I mean, I just don't think we can be competitive paying below minimum wage for these positions to be able to hire for them. So it seems like a no-brainer to me as well. Any questions?
No, just a comment that I'm glad we're doing this. My daughter, she hasn't the last couple of years, but she was worked up at the Booth Camp for 6 years, I think. And, there's a lot of responsibility, even though they're younger. I mean, if they can go stand at, in the drive-up window at McDonald's and get paid more money, and, they're watching, they're watching children and keeping them busy, and it's a pretty important position. So just basically a comment, I'm kind of glad that we're heading in that direction.
Thanks, Steph.
I was on the Personnel Committee when this first came before the board there, so I support it.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, great. So I think we're ready for that first motion, and then we'll go into the anti-discrimination policy next.
Okay. Where is it?
Motion.
Oh, I got it. Okay, motion to approve the seasonal pay rates for seasonal recreation, DPH, and library employees is recommended by the Personnel Board.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great.
Thank you. And the last item for this evening is the updated anti-discrimination policy. In addition to the pay plan, on February 15th, we presented the final draft of our updated anti-discrimination policy to reflect the Crown Act. The update was necessary for the town's personnel and policy guide to be compliant. We worked in partnership with Attorney Jack Dolan, and the Personnel Board unanimously approved the updates. So my last request for the evening is for the Select Board to vote and approve this policy update as well.
All right, no questions?
Okay, ready? Motion to approve the updated anti-discrimination policy per Crown Act to the Personnel Policy Book.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right, and just before we let you go, we didn't talk about the job description. I'm sorry, I kind of flew by that for the finance director.
Yes.
It is here, you know, I think we can let Liz know if we have any questions, but it was just revamped, so if you have any feedback, certainly pass it along to Liz to take into account as that gets posted, and make sure you do so, obviously, with enough time before the posting date. Okay, anything else?
All right,
No?
that's it.
All right.
Thank you for your
Liz.
time.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, great. And next we have the change of manager application for Showcase Cinema. All right, welcome to the meeting. If you can just come up and just introduce yourselves and then tell us a little bit about the application that we have in front of us today.
Sure. My name is Sean. Whoa,
It's on wheels.
so am I. My name is Sean Judge. I'm the area manager in New England for National Amusements. I have with me Miss Allison Machado. She's the managing director at Showcase Cinema Deluxe here at Patriot Place in Foxborough. And we're here to apply for Allison to be made the manager of record on our license. Allison has worked for our company since 1999, came up in the ranks as a cashier, and has worked in several buildings in leadership positions, including house manager, which is our second in command, managing director. She's worked at Showcase Cinemas in Warwick, Showcase Cinemas Warwick Mall, Showcase Cinema at Providence Place Mall. Most recently, she was the managing director at our theater in North Attleboro. And in all of these establishments, she's worked in buildings that have been licensed establishments. She has many years of experience being part of the team that is managing our liquor compliance or liquor service compliance. She was a manager of record at the theater in North Attleboro with no incidents or issues, violations. And I would like your consideration to make her the manager of record at Patriot Place.
All right, great. Any questions on the application? I love how you put your tip cert right in the application. We don't get that very often, so that was very much appreciated.
That's our crack legal team.
That was a good
That's our first question.
Yeah, but we can't ask her, you've already provided it, so. And you've had a liquor license in your name before, so this isn't anything new, you've been with the business. I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have any questions?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
All right, great, so I think we're ready for a motion.
All right. Motion to approve the change of manager application for Quincy Amusements, Inc., doing business as Showcase Cinema Deluxe at Patriot Place, from Kevin Dybala to Elizabeth Machado.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Congratulations.
Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you. All right, we have a public hearing at 7:15. We're right about there. We have about 2 minutes, so I'm just going to take the action items, just so we can just kill 2 minutes before our first public hearing. We just have 3 quick ones, so get them out of the way.
Motion to accept a $150 donation to the Historical Commission from the Foxborough Historical Society for new veterans markers.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, motion to accept a $250 donation for the Fox in the Borough program from the Triborough Paint Center to the Foxborough Cultural Council.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from February 14th, 2023.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. So next up, we have a public hearing for a Class 2 auto license for Jadco Auto Sales at 58 Leonard Street. The applicant, all right, if you could just come up. It is a public hearing, so we do have to just read a notice. So I'll have Dennis read the notice, and then I'll have you introduce yourself and tell you about the application.
Sure. You can sit down.
Oh, thank you.
The Board of Selectmen, acting as a local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 59, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023, beginning at 7:15 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on the application for a Class 2 used car dealer's license filed on behalf of Jadco Auto Sales for the premises located at 58 Leonard Street, Foxborough, Mass. 02035. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
All right, good
Good
evening.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm looking for Class 2 license, a used car license, just to register at the auctions. I will have the access to go to the auction or to bid online just to buy cars and export it, just send it from the auction to the port and export it overseas. I'm not going to park car there, nothing, no update there. It's everything still as residential address, but this license helped me to register at all the auctions over the United States, and I will use it for online bidding.
Okay, all right, great. And we have seen one of these before, so basically he needs the license in order to be able to participate in the auctions. No
Yeah.
cars, no sign.
No, nothing.
Any comments from the departments that came in? Anything from Scott or anything?
No.
Okay.
Keep.
All right. Any discussion from the board?
So, as the licensing authority, how are we establishing that the criteria for the licensing is met? Is it Scott or?
Yeah, that's why I know Scott has checked into these. Sorry.
Katie's online, I think, just give her.
Oh, I didn't know we had Katie on Zoom.
We
so-
did, sorry, we just had that presentation up, I think. Mr. Beck is working on getting her up there.
Okay.
Okay?
Go ahead.
Katie?
I'm just always in the background, always here, just never on camera. Yeah, so I checked with Scott, so we'll put on the same license that we did for Boost Unleashed. I believed that was late 2021, that, you know, there will be a restriction of no cars on site or no repair work done at 58 Leonard Street, and then that will just be monitored by Scott and his team.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds acceptable to me, and we haven't had any issues with the other one. I remember we kind of hashed our way through this I think that was the first one we had seen, so.
Okay, so Scott, in effect, is,
He's the monitor.
Monitoring, yep,
Monitor.
yep,
okay,
exactly.
great.
And this is a public hearing. Is anyone here from the audience here about this public hearing? No? Okay. All right. So any further discussion before we close the public hearing on this one? No? Okay. All right, you just need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to approve a Class 2 auto
First,
license.
Close
you
the-
just need
close
to
the
close
hearing
the
first.
public hearing first, sorry.
Motion to close the public meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Well, thank you very much.
Now we take a motion to approve your license.
Okay. Motion to approve a Class 2 auto license for Jadco Auto Sales with the restriction that no cars are allowed on premises and no auto body repair work is done at the address listed on the license.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. All right, so the next one that we have is a Class 3 auto license application. We don't see these often. We have two in one evening for Cook's Towing and Transport at 24 East Belcher Road. So same thing, we need to open the public hearing, and then Bill will kind of let us know where that one stands, and then we're going to continue the public hearing. But I understand some people may be here this evening to make comment on this, so we will hear you if you would like to make a comment. We will, there'll be a time, probably a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes, we're thinking. And then from there, we will continue the public hearing, and the applicant will be in front of us at the next date, as long as nothing else happens.
Okay, the Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 59, will conduct the public hearing on Tuesday, February 28, 2023, beginning at 7:20 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on the application for a Class 3 secondhand motor vehicle/vehicle parts license filed on behalf of Cook's Towing and Transport, Inc., doing business as Cook's Towing and Transport, for the premises located at 24 East Belcher Road, Foxborough, Mass. 02035. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
All right, great. So as I mentioned, we did hear from the applicant in advance, who let us know they'd like to have the hearing continued to March 28th at 7:15 p.m. We will take a motion for that. But Bill, can you just provide the board some background before we go to the public?
Sure. So this is an application of an individual who has been operating a area what is known as a salvage yard at this location for quite some time. Upon further review of the situation, the The building commissioner has determined that this is not a use that's allowable under zoning. He's cited the individual or indicated that he's 30 days to comply with the requirements of the zoning. If he does not, he will be cited for each violation for each day that he's not in compliance. However, at the same time, the individual has requested a license from the board because it is required under the statute to have a license from this board to actually operate that facility. Upon advice of his counsel, he has actually asked for a continuance until he further reviews the entire situation with his client. The board will have to actually continue it to a date certain under the requirements so that this application can be determined at that point whether it goes forward or whether or not it will be heard that it will not be heard and further continuance or just withdrawal at that point.
Okay. And just for my understanding, so is the license that he's applying for a license that he needs for a business that he was already doing that was unlawfully
Yes.
happening? So his business isn't changing, his business is staying the same as it is, but he's missing a license.
He does not have a license to operate, nor does he, nor that there appears to be a concern about the actual zoning itself.
Okay.
Which is something that's being addressed through the building commissioner.
Okay, all right, great. All right. So any questions from the board before, I understand people have come out on this one, so I do want to, give them time to hear from them as well. Any questions for our board before we do so with that?
Nope.
No, okay. All right, so how many people do we have here on this item? We've got 1, 2, 3 people speaking?
Over here, too.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you back there. So we've got 4 people speaking. All right, so if you can keep your comment to about 3 minutes, and would ask you, obviously, if someone gets up and says the same thing, we've heard it. There will be another public hearing. You're obviously invited to come back to that one. That will be on March 28th at 7:15 as well. But we do welcome you if you want to come up. Make sure you sign in if you haven't already done so. Come up, give us your name, and give us your street address as well, and then we'll take your comments. So it looks like Mr. Cook's going to go first.
Why not?
Mr. Cook with an E, not the applicant. Mr. Cook
relation,
without
no
an
relation
E.
to the
So.
applicant.
Thank you. Bill, you were quite polite calling it a salvage yard. I call it a junkyard, but anyways.
There's a professional term for it.
And I will set a timer, which I'm going to do for everyone, just so that we keep ourselves on track, so.
So Bill Cook at 112 Spring Street in Foxborough. I've been at that residence since 1967. And the reason why I'm passionate about this junkyard up on 24 East Belcher Street is what he doesn't have room for up there ends up down on Spring Street at his properties at 91, 79, and 73 Spring Street. He has quite an area there. And it's full of old tractors, old trucks, bulldozers, you name it, it's there. Shipping containers, commercial shipping containers, I think he has 2 or 3 of them if he hasn't moved some already. Dumpsters that have sit in his yard full for a year and a half, 2 years now. It's just deplorable. He's bringing down the properties of all the homeowners at the whole area in Spring Street. So we felt that, something has to be done at this point because it's just getting worse. This has been going on for 12 years. Back in 2010, we sent a letter to the then building inspector who virtually did nothing about it. So we sat back and we just watched it get worse and worse. And now it's at the point where he needs to be stopped. He needs to get some commercial land somewhere and take care of his salvage material, whatever he wants to do. But it doesn't belong on Spring Street and it doesn't belong on East Belcher. I don't know if you people have seen any pictures of the area, but I'd like to leave these with you so you can go over them. If you want to look at them and pass them along, I don't know anybody that needs a locomotive in their business sitting in amongst all the junks. It's really deplorable. So that's basically what we want to do. We want to try to stop the licensing because he's running a towing business, but he's also running a salvage business out of there. So, and like I said, half it ends up down on Spring Street, which is an R40 residential area. So you'll be hearing from me again come 28th. And we have a meeting with the zoning board on the 16th for a determination on Spring Street, so.
When's that one again? I know I watched.
16th of
March
March.
16th, okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Right, thank you
Thank
for
you
your
very much,
time.
Mr. Cook.
And keep those two.
Thank you. All right, if the next person wants to come up, same thing, if you can tell us your name, your address, and I'll reset the timer as well.
How much?
3 minutes. And you can sit at the table or at the podium, wherever you're most comfortable.
Thank you. My name is Tom Oleksic. I live at 52 Spring Street in Foxborough. And I just have a couple of questions for the board. And that is, how long has this business been operating at 24 East Belcher Road? Do you know how long it's been?
Yeah, I mean,
operating?
we're here to listen to you. I don't, as far as the public hearing being continued tonight, I don't have,
You are the licensing agent for the town, so I'm just wondering, this is a business that has been operating for X amount of years unlawfully and not in compliance. So now this action is being taken to, I imagine, help the business come into compliance with the regulations and the rules of the town, which is fine. But I'm wondering how long, I mean, is this a common problem in this town where someone can go for maybe 6 years? 6 years, perhaps? 12 years.
yeah, I don't have the date
Operating-
in front of me
Okay.
right now.
Well, it raises a question. Another question I have is that, is this license, if it's granted, is it site-specific? In other words, is this just being recorded because this is his address of business? Or is the operation and the license to operate at that location site-specific?
Site-specific. It would not be a license for 28
Okay.
Spring Street or whatever the address is. That
Okay,
the
well-
license would only be for the
Another
address here.
question I have is, are these licenses, when they are granted, are they subject to renewal periodically?
Correct.
Annually.
Annually.
What is annually? Okay. That's all I really wish to
Okay.
know. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we can get back to you with the date that the business first opened. It's just not something that I have, right available at my
Well,
fingertips.
I understand, but I think it's a salient point. If someone can operate a business unlawfully for whatever that business might be, it's going to have, it could have implications, whether it's a hair salon or a nail salon or a junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
It can impact people in some very significant ways if someone is operating a business without the proper license.
Yeah, and I think we take that very seriously, so that's why we're here this evening.
Very good, thank you.
Anyone else? If you can just tell us again, I know you just heard it, but your name and your address.
I'm Ernest Martins, 61 Spring Street, Foxborough. I have the same kind of concern that a renewal of a license not be applied to Spring Street. Right now, as Mr. Cook says, there seems to be like a free zone of transferring things from, I can't, I didn't see it myself, but I mean, it seems like there's a transference of things from one, from Belcher to Spring Street. And I want to avoid that happening and turning Spring Street into a junk street. Okay? There's enough traffic on that street right now with the people going to the arena, the ice arena and this arena, and of course they have new buildings, new homes down there, fine. But there's a lot of traffic in there that used to not happen, and I would actually like to see some kind of a speed limit kind of posted sign there. It may not have to do with this particular item, but I'd like to see some kind of a action concerning the speed of that, because people just seem to just whiz down that road. But anyway, getting back to this Cook situation. So I agree, I don't want to see Spring Street coming to a point where, okay, there's junk being just put into the yard, and that may have a deleterious effect on the environment in terms of the conservation area behind that area. And this is, I believe I think it's probably connected to the conservation area in some place, at some point when it goes further back. I don't know the border there, but this may have to do with the conservation area too. So to have a junkyard next to a conservation area doesn't make any sense. Well, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rounds, or, I'm sorry, I don't know your name back there. Do you want to come up as well?
Actually, I just had a quick question for
Okay.
you. My name's Joe Stanley. I live at 83 Spring Street. And I'm hearing on one hand that it's a salvage yard, and then those of us who see it consider it more of a junkyard. I'm curious, what is the definition of both, or what's the difference between the two?
Well, it's actually, it's listed in the zoning. I don't have the zoning in front of me, sir, but.
Just
yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry?
Get the bylaw right here if you want me to read it.
It's okay. I just, I think it's sort of self-descriptive in many ways, but it's storage of unused vehicles that are not operating, and they're not actually registered vehicles. They're not operable vehicles unto themselves. So it's a storage of vehicles that are not being used for that type of thing. So, and using them for other parts, things of that nature, that's sort of connotates a salvage type of operation.
All right, and obviously, if you look at it, it kind of looks more like a junkyard than that. And then-
I'm using the term that's typically used as opposed to a junkyard, which, that's the standard
or a passive
term that people use, right?
Like saying cemetery or graveyard, it's
Yeah,
a
that's right.
different term for the same thing.
Okay. All right, and then just one other comment. I actually live next door to his property on Spring Street. And as far as the amount of noise and vehicles at all hours of the day, there was at one point, it was probably 6 or 7 years, every Saturday, every Sunday, I heard heavy earth-moving equipment in his yard starting at 7 o'clock. I also work, I have my day job, but I also work in a band. I usually get home at 2, 3 in the morning. So to hear those buzzings and beeps at 7 was a little bit tough. And so that is something I would like to have this stop it, depending on how the board rules.
Okay,
Very good.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you. Thank you.
great. Anyone else? All right, I think you know the drill by now. Name?
Arthur Rounds, 141 Cocasset Street, Foxborough. I was a direct abutter to that cook's yard since back in 1969, long before anything was even built there. I have a lot to say about this. I'm not going to say it tonight. I had sold the property to my son 2 years ago, and he's been on vacation in Florida. He won't be back till next week. So I'm sure he'll be at the next meeting, and I don't know exactly what is going to be said. I've got to talk to him first. And he has some serious concerns as well as I have. Things that have been out of control for a long time, and things do have to be addressed. I'm not sure what will, I hate to talk against someone or I don't know. I've never really complained about this operation in the past. I didn't want a conflict with a neighbor. I just had hoped that the zoning would take care of the problem for me. But I had some pictures to bring tonight and everything else. I didn't know I was going to be able to even speak tonight, so we'll definitely be at your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll be honest, my daughter goes to a program down on East Belcher Road. So I drive down there probably 2-3 times a week. So I'm very, very familiar with the property. And I actually started reaching out to the building inspector and, through Christina to the police, because I was concerned about how close trucks are parked to the road. I mean, there is a neighborhood down there. I know that road hasn't always been as traveled, but being someone that travels that road often, I also, and has for a few years, I feel like it has been traveled more. So I won't ask you to weigh in tonight, but I would hope maybe you can let us know next time. I know I've asked this, but the proximity, the trucks are parked to the road are so close that there's actually orange flags and barrels put out. That would lead me to believe that someone realizes how close they are parked to the road, that it is unsafe. So thinking of today with plows, they are typically so close that I would question someone's safety if a plow driver was coming by, especially in bad conditions. Particularly on when you go around the corner, I've wondered, are those trucks on the Rounds property? Where does it end? So I know I've had a lot of discussions in the past as well with building and planning as far as, how far can something be parked to the road? What's the setbacks, on the property? Quite literally, are the trailers even on the property? Because when you come around that really sharp road, that sharp corner on Dump Road, sometimes there are like backs of trucks without motors even on them that are just right at the road. So, I would ask, maybe I see a lot of our police out here, to take a really close look. I know I've got a bunch of pictures too on my phone and videos as well, but even from a standpoint, I would just, the applicant should be expected to talk about that. That's one of my personal concerns. Never mind, again, I think there's even another locomotive on that property as well. So,
I don't see any train tracks.
yeah. So, I would like to have police weigh in, if before the next meeting, or if someone's here, and then maybe if the Rounds can let us know, next meeting, if there are things that have kind of spilled over onto their property, and also from the town's perspective, if there are things parked on the town's property as well. Because I know there's a lot of stuff going on there, but from a public safety standpoint, I have concerns.
Should the building commissioner be here too?
I think he plans to. I think where this was continued,
Yes, because it was
we hadn't
continued, we
really
didn't bring him
planned on
into it.
getting into this much discussion, but we have quite a large audience here this evening for it. So, I wanted to make sure people have come out. It's
A lot more.
a tough day, so,
Called them off, I backed them off tonight.
yeah. So,
Continue.
I think with that, any other comments from the board? Go ahead.
I'm just interested in residential real estate being used for commercial purposes, and what recourse there is for something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be through Scott, through the building inspector. So if we have a residential property being used for a purpose it's not, which I have tuned into those meetings. There's other meetings going on right now for 58 Spring Street with a different board. So this is kind of a two-piece.
With Scott as well? Okay.
Yeah, so that is definitely on Scott's radar as well.
That matter is actually before the ZBA right now, because he has actually brought that issue to his attention as well, and that is being appealed. His decision is being appealed before the zoning board of appeals.
For 58 Spring. So this is, both properties are kind of in front of boards right now as well.
Thank you.
And then, going forward each year, we're going to make sure that we reach out to the building inspector. We did have some turnover in that department, and, just like restaurants, we reach out to the Board of Health. Hey, everyone in good standing, we reach out, has everyone paid their taxes? Looking at some of these auto ones, for the ones we just approved, for this one, having that be part of the process to really look at it and get that kind of sign off internally as well before we're renewing these as well, so.
Yeah, and I think not to make any excuses, I can't remember the gentleman's name right there in the middle. No, you're right. We are the licensing board. Unfortunately, we cannot be at every property that's being licensed or anything. So we do rely on the Board of Health and Building. But I can only, based on working with this board, we take your concerns very seriously. And I, for one, would not, if it cannot be compliant to all the rules on both properties, I wouldn't feel comfortable with relicensing. We're going to with that being said, I would give Mr. Cook the opportunity to be here and listen to him. But I do want you to know that we're not just here shaking our head and agreeing with you. This is a board that does take action. With a little help from the people in town who can help us know what they're allowed to do and won't do. So it's not on deaf ears.
People voted on zoning, all right, and there's some of us that abide by it, and there's some of us that think they don't have to.
Yeah. No, you're right.
We just want to straighten it out.
Yeah.
So just a quick question, if I could.
Gotta come up.
So the question.
We can't hear you on TV, sorry.
Martin's from Spring.
Yeah, if you could,
Right before the
it's more for the
microphone.
sound, sorry.
Because it's being televised, that's why.
Ernest Martin, 61 Spring Street. So my question is, how can somebody apply for a license if they're, and if they're operating illegally, how can that even be considered?
That's what I wanted.
They're coming to come into compliance.
Two people I heard say relicensing, but this is the initial.
This is the initial
Right,
license.
because they're a license with a different license.
Well, that's my question. I mean,
So
if
that's
you're
a-
operating illegally and it's against the law, that's what illegal means,
It's not a
right?
renewal at that point.
This is not a renewal license. This is a new license application. And what happens, as soon as this gentleman actually requested a license hearing, first thing that we do is send it to zoning for compliance. And that's where it was determined that there was a non-compliance matter here.
So what does non-compliance mean? Against
In other words, it's not compliant with the current zoning.
zoning law?
Zoning law, that's right.
Okay, so it's against the law?
It's against the current zoning law, that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to add, this is my first year on the select board, so I haven't seen this kind of issue come forward again. You know, we're here to listen, but we're listening. And I have particular concerns about property values and what this might cause to property values, particularly in a market that's really strong. You know, so if you have any more context to specifically how that might have affected property values, I mean, that's something that I'd be interested in. I'm sure the board would.
Yeah, I do think, I understand the properties relate, but I do think we have to be careful. The understand the correlation and relevance, of course.
Well, yeah, well, because it's hard to issue any business a license if they're not following the rules at other places in town. And I would hope that Mr. Cook would realize that there wouldn't be any bias, but if you're not following what your properties are zoned for, it's, for, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, it would be hard to issue a new license if you're not following the rules of your properties, for me.
So just to be clear, the only application for a license is 24 East Belcher.
Yeah, so we get there's issues at Spring Street, but that's not what our board is
He has not
voting
applied
on.
for a license
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
We get it, and we're hearing it,
Yeah, but my point is, if you own 4 restaurants in town, and 3 of them, you've been caught serving under, and then you're coming for a license for another one, for me, that would impact my judgment to give you another license for something if you're not following, rules. That's what I meant by, it would definitely weigh on me if you can't follow the rules somewhere else. Are you going to follow the rules at the property that we're going to look
Consider it.
at, which is
Consider it.
East Belcher?
Yeah, we're in negotiation with the ZBA for the Spring Street properties.
Yeah. And that's televised too, March 16th. You can go back and watch the last one as well. So recorded on YouTube, so. All right, so with that, I think we're ready for a motion to continue the public hearing. I'm sure we'll see some of you back here at that time, but we have to officially take that motion, and then we'll see folks then.
Motion to continue the public hearing to March 28th at 7:15 PM.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? And just a reminder, if you haven't signed in on your way in, just if you can please sign in on your way out. Thank you very much. All right, great. We have the police department here for a department update and your additional position request. I had tried to get fire in here as well, but Chief Kelleher is away at a chief conference. So we will hear from fire and DPW next meeting.
Mike said he didn't want to go after me because he ends up waiting too long. So.
It's quite a thick deck there.
Just to remind you, Chief, you got 15 minutes.
I'll make the jokes in a second.
All right, so we don't have your deck, so I would like your deck if we can. Just put it in here and memorialize it to kind of go look out at.
What would you like?
If you can send us that after,
I can
so
do that.
Christina can
Oh,
upload
sure.
it? Okay.
Okay. So the first part is, first of all, I just want to thank the Select Board for having us. I'm here with the command staff of the Foxborough Police Department. To my left is Deputy Chief Richard Noonan, Lieutenant Ken Fitzgerald, and Lieutenant John Chamberlain. I've been in front of the board several times, giving year-to-date updates on the police department, and I think it's critical and important for the board and the residents of Foxborough to see more than just my face when we're talking about this, as my team has so much on their plate, and each of them are going to talk about their compartment. I have limited their time slots just to about 10, 12, 15 minutes. A presentation of the police department could probably be 3 hours. So we started at 76 slides. So we have downsized drastically, so that way we don't get in trouble. Christina was adamant that we do not go over. And we have a second presentation afterward, which is a budget presentation, which will probably entertain a lot of questions. At any time, if someone has a question, interrupt us, and we'll try to go as fast as we can. It's kind of exciting to put these together because it really shows what the police department is doing and how we're serving the residents and businesses in Foxborough. So here we go. I'm going to go first. I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the administrative activity with my administrative staff. For example, our license to carry that I oversee, that's essentially takes up my entire Tuesday. 277 this year alone. That's a constant number every single year. Some year during COVID, we were 300. And that's before any of the appeals or denials that go off to court for trial. Public records are just daunting at this point. I think the town clerk does about 130, 140. This last year, we hit 1,296. Every single one of these requests has to be redacted and within compliance. Some of them are appeals to the Attorney General because people want information that we cannot give out, and it goes back and forth. So Bob Bulger is one of my administrative assistants, and essentially 50% of every single day that he works is dedicated to public records and meeting those mandates under the law. Billing, we, as a police agency, we do all our own billing for all of our third-party work. This year, we exceeded over $3 million in invoicing, and we also are in charge of collecting all of our money and balancing the books. In the last 3 years, we have only had one bill that was unpaid, which was a 4-hour detail, as a paving contractor went out of business on us, and we really couldn't get blood from a stone on that one. So the collection rate is outstanding. Most people want to pay the police department. In regards to personnel matters, this is just a look at some of the officers who were injured in the last year and what kind of hours it subtracts from our deployment of our staff. As you'll see, employee A through G, these are all different employees. One of them ended up with a surgery as a result of a young lady trying to hurt herself at the campground. We had to chase her and ultimately had an injury, which was a surgery. Another officer ended up with ACL reconstruction during a training, motorcycle training. All the motorcycle officers are trained on a regular basis. Before they would not train, they wouldn't train, they'd hit the road. It's a diminished skill. You have to train, you have to stay up on it. Unfortunately, when the bike went down, he just went to hold it. It's over 800 pounds and it tore his interior and exterior ACL. He is back to work now after all that surgery. But as you can see, it's thousands of hours that officer can't show up to work. We had another officer separate almost his calf muscle from his foot, helping a motorist. I mean, this guy's a recon Marine. He was walking around a boot all summer going insane. But he got back to work. Another officer was a shoulder injury. He didn't lose any time. I honestly think he separated it on a rappelling part of the SWAT team, but he didn't lose any time. But we do document this in case some of these injuries come back. Employee E and F were involved in a mental health or EDP, emotionally disturbed person. This particular person ended up attacking the officers, biting them. One of them almost lost their eye trying to gouge it. These two staff came back to work the next day, all cut up, bleeding. I'm like, "What are you doing?" But they had to get their reports done, and didn't lose any time. Unfortunately, employee G, we had to retire him. He ended up with a broken neck and cervical surgery to his one of his neck discs, and ultimately the nerve damage just can't bring back part of his function, and he can't do the job anymore. So he was out the whole year. That was a 2-year process, and we lost a good guy there. So just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that do occur with the officers. Lieutenant John Chamberlain, who is the operations lieutenant There you go, John. He oversees patrol, so he's going to give you a little taste of it.
I'll give you a little brief thing about patrol. This is the guys you see driving around in the cruisers, everything during the daytime in the uniforms and stuff. I'm in charge of 6 sergeants, 18 patrol officers. We have 24 reserve officers and also the animal control. This is a basic calls for service. We respond 28,738 calls, the motor vehicle stops, the citations, the basic numbers, what they do on a daily basis. School safety, myself, Chief Grace, and numerous other officers, we have kids in the school system, kids that graduate the school system, so we're personally vested in this. This is something we take very serious. We have 4 school resource officers. We cover the Foxborough schools and the regional charter school with an attendance of 4,162 students throughout town daily. They're supervised by Sergeant Val Collins, who does a great job. Some of the stuff they do, we've created safety plans for all schools in case an incident happens. We have staging areas, road closures already pre-planned, so it won't be anything on the fly. We have a handle of care program. If we deal with children in the home, we let the school know, so maybe they get them some resources at school with their siblings. Threat assessment, work with the schools and the FBI to identify if they have concerns about maybe something they see or observe on social media. The teachers and staff have all attended specialized training. We did that for the town hall too, when how to barricade the doors, escape, take care of the students, so everyone's been trained in that. All our officers attend active shooter training, where when the school's closed, we put on the gear, we work with fire. It's almost like a paintball, but it hurts. We work on our tactics and see what works, what doesn't work, so in case anything happens, we'll be ready. The SROs are also in the school daily, just building relationships. You can see Officer Monteroso playing a little kickball. We have a High Five Friday, which is a big hit with all the kids, so on the elementary schools, we rotate around with the charter schools. The Patriots have recently joined us with Pat Patriot and a couple cheerleaders, and they're a little bit more popular than we are. But from there. Our SROs also do social media safety, pedestrian bus safety. We've got kids in the station tours and the High Five Fridays. This is a little active shooter training at the charter school. Well, the entire department went through that. And probably the biggest trends in Foxborough, I'll show you in the years, is you probably get a lot of complaints about speeders on the roadway and stuff. So what happens when we get a call for speeders or stuff like that, we do a traffic survey beforehand. We put the things out on the road. We look at the analytics and see if there actually is speed in there, and that way we can have our patrol times there, not just saying go down the South Street and run radar at a certain time. We try to really make it more analytical these days. As you can see, before COVID, it was like 422 accidents on the roadways. COVID, no one was driving. In the last 2 years, we've kept it down. And some of the ways we've done that is we have these traffic signs. When the analytics show that speeding is a concern, we place these signs on the roadways, and it'll tell the driver, make them aware of it. So we have them right now on Oak, Summer, Mechanic, Lakeview, and Beach Street. These are all purchased through a grant. It's about $4,000 each, and if the driver's going over the speed limit, they'll tell them to slow down. It caps off at 10 miles over, so kids won't race it and try to see if who can set the record. So it just goes to 10 miles. Also, we've increased traffic enforcement from patrol. This was the number of citations issued in 19. COVID, they still worked. We have no traffic quota. We don't tell people that you have to write a certain amount of tickets. Our officers are really committed to safety violations and stuff, driving around town. A lot of these are warnings, they're not money tickets, but it's just to slow people down. And you can see they've really made a commitment in 2022 to keep our roadways safe by increasing it by almost 400 from the 2019 prior to COVID. The one real concerning one since COVID's really we've dealt with is mental health calls. These are serious calls. This isn't just maybe a fire department, someone having a bad day. And when we deal with mental health calls, it's not a 10-minute call. It takes a long time. A lot of these people are being transported to the hospital. An officer is also going with them. There's follow-ups. And you can see in 19, we only had 35. 2020, we had 50. It jumped almost 50, and it keeps rising. We're having a real problem with that. So we've been working alongside Foxborough Fire to hire a mental health counselor. Chief Grace is really committed to getting every officer trained in CIT crisis training. We're about 75% of all our department is trained in that. And that's in addition to academy training and basic in-service training. So they can recognize someone's having a mental health issue and just not a bad day. And we've been really trying to get people help with that in the town. Another bad thing is opioids. This was the overdose and the fatals we had in town. And we've pretty made a pretty good difference since 2020 when we had 25 overdoses and 5 people die in town. Last year we only had 9 and 1, and I think it's today we only had 3 this year. And one of the reasons we've been able to knock that down is we have a critical incident management system where I'm notified if any of our residents overdose in any town in Massachusetts. And if we get that notice, we send 2 officers for a follow-up. They're dressed in plain clothes, so we won't stigmatize anyone. We offer them resources, and it's not to be done any investigative purpose. We're not there to get information, it's just to get them help and offer them ways to get that. And by that also, I receive a daily list of every detox and medically assisted treatment beds available daily. So if they need help, we can steer them in the right direction and help them get that. Another big thing too, to knock over the fatal ones, is every officer is trained to carry Narcan on patrol. So every officer on the road has that. A lot of times we get there before fire, and a lot of times minutes count, so that's made a difference also.
Excuse me. What resources are out there now with the hospitals, given what's happening?
There's a lot of beds. The one closed here on Walnut Street, but it's a lot of hospitals like Norwood Hospital and closed. But there's a lot of private beds, and they'll tell me female beds, also male beds, even juveniles, transgender. They'll list every type of thing. A lot of them are on the North Shore and stuff, but we can work with those officers can work with them getting assistance. We can call Riverside, which is a community resource, will come down too. They actually help with transportation to these facilities, and we'll get them into it. A lot of times they don't know where to turn. So if you can point them in a direction and say, this place has an opening, instead of just randomly calling detoxes through Massachusetts. A good bonus is Metrolec. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's Foxborough Patrol and Detectives. Metrolec is a consortium of more than 46 local police and sheriff departments in around the area. So if we had a critical incident in Foxborough, we can call upon these other communities to send their officers to help. We right now, it's 10% of our officers are involved in this. So if you had a lost child and there's only 4 officers on the road, we could call Metrolec. They would send 50 officers here, drones. And some of the resources they have for Foxborough is child abduction teams, computer crime teams, mobile operations, the motorcycles. We use it when we have big funerals in town. We've had them assist with 10, 15 bikes. We have a SWAT team. This is Officer Pollister with his K-9 partner. If we had a lost child, they could help. We also have a drone team now. That's a picture from our drone on Founders Day. And just the other day off of East Belcher, we had a lost child that left the cheer factory in a snowstorm, went out, threw a blanket over herself to hide from her parents, and it started to snow, so the snow snowed over the blanket. But our drone with the heat seeking was able to locate the heat signature in the woods, and they located the child, which would have been almost impossible to find. Officers were standing right there and didn't see her. That was pretty much, if you have any questions about patrol, I'd be glad to answer.
Quick question, John. I've heard there's a new synthetic sort of street drug out there. I think it might be called Trank or something like that. I don't know if you've heard of anything new out there that doesn't
we haven't dealt with any overdose or anything like that in Foxborough. We haven't made any arrests for it yet, so it hasn't made its way here. The main drug is like fentanyl and heroin is the problems we have. And
yeah, this new one I've read about, it doesn't respond to the Narcan, that type of thing, so God forbid it comes up here and starts causing a problem.
We haven't had it yet, though.
Okay,
so.
Thanks.
Everyone knows me, Ken Fitzgerald. So I take care of the administrative division and get ready a lot of stuff here. My main thing is I'm the directly to me, so I from time with them and directly oversee things like server and operations, by bus, that sort of thing. Also supervise our court process. We have one court officer. There's two people trained as backup court officers, and then we also have the school resource officers deal with the juvenile court. In terms of, I also deal with the property and evidence room. I have one officer, administrative officer. One of his main functions is being in charge of the evidence room, and that's one of the most high liability areas in the organization. We just went through a full inventory and audit last week, and told that we're great compliance, and looks like we've really got everything moving well there. I serve as our training coordinator. I'm the training coordinator of a couple different things, but I'm the liaison to the Police Training Commission, so I deal with them for training things. There's an online portal where all of our staff are in there. I'll talk more about training, but with some of the police reform that's occurred in the past 3 years, the reserve police, who used to be just kind of a group that would come in and work details and help out on certain holiday events, things like that, they're now basically considered, they're no different than anyone at this table in terms of training. So same training requirements. So got to manage the training responsibilities of 70 people, not just the 30 some odd police officers. I'm our FTO supervisor, so I have a sergeant as a coordinator and 4 field training officers that deal with new people, and that training process is 12 weeks for new recruits out of the academy. It's shorter for transfer officers. Last year we had 2 officers graduate the Boston Police Academy, so that was combined 24 weeks of training. It's daunting when, especially when we have multiple at the same time, because now you've got to make sure that if one of these FTOs in the span of 3 months needs to take a vacation day or deal with a sick kid or something, that there's coverage. I'm our fleet manager. I deal with all of our vehicles. My main thing is the procurement and upfitting and purchasing, that sort of thing. I have one officer who assists with repairs and preventative maintenance and scheduling, things like that. I deal with our records management system, most all the technology in the building, our radios. I do the bulk of our grant writing. John does some of the stuff for the highway safety. I do a lot of the other stuff. Last year, we got grants from the Gaming Commission, the Department of Public Health, and the Municipal Police Training Committee, that I'll talk about later. I supervise crash reconstruction. I came from Natick back in, I think it was 2014. I was in the Highway Safety Division there, and I was a reconstructionist for about 10 years, and I've still kept it up here, and now with some help from the Gaming Commission, we've really started to grow that and expand it. We've got 1 officer fully trained. I put 2 because the second officer is finishing his last class to be certified as a reconstructionist this week down in Cranston, Rhode Island, and that's been a busy task. We've had 2 fatal accidents in the last 90 days, and then another very serious one just last weekend. I supervise the facilities. We have 1 custodian that goes between police and fire. I'm the liaison to SEMREC, Regional Dispatch. You know me from liquor licensing, compliance. And I also serve on the Uptown Parking Committee, traffic, the stop loss control group within the town for insurance, and also in the non-union representative for the IAC. Let's see. That was remnants of a marijuana grow and a house fire on Central Street. I think it was earlier last year. That was a lot. It filled a van and a truck. That was a couple hundred pounds. Street value of in excess of $1 million in marijuana. So last year, detectives, and these numbers don't really do anything justice, 110 cases were assigned by me to detectives for follow-up. Those are cases that started with a patrol officer taking a report, somebody calling the police or coming in, and it could be anything from somebody stole from me, my house was broken into, my car was stolen, identity theft. It could be a serious domestic situation that needed more follow-up for additional charges, sexual assaults, we'll get to that. So that seems like a relatively low number, but that's what was assigned to them coming from patrol. Between the 3 of them, there was another 45 incident reports that they generated from their own doings, whatever investigations they had going on. The detectives had 9 arrests last year. 44 people were they got 44 arrest warrants or summonses for people to bring them to court. They wrote 54 search warrants. Search warrants takes, at the minimum, it's an hour or two to write a really basic search warrant. Some search warrants take a day or two to prepare, and the affidavit can be in excess of 15 or 20 pages, depending on what the crime is, what we're looking for. Administrative subpoenas are a little easier. That's a very routine process, but it happens very regularly. That's often for phone records, email records, banking records, things like that. That's still a process. It's very time-consuming for these guys. Clearance rate, when I talk clearance rate, that means crimes that were solved or resolved where a suspect was identified. The national average, the last records from the FBI in 2017, the blended average between property crimes and crimes against the person was 31%. So crimes against the person nationally are solved at a much higher rate. Those are murders, robberies, anything where the person is physically the victim of something. Crimes against property, your theft, your larcenies, your shopliftings, much lower rate of solving those. And often it's just it's really a time management thing. Is the juice worth the squeeze on a theft case versus somebody was the victim of something? So it's almost always the victims are prioritized over a monetary loss. Our detectives, their combined average, if a detective is assigned a case in Foxborough, is 48% chance that they're going to solve it. So we're well above the national average. And we started last year, BOSAR's, just an acronym for behavioral observation. It's the plainclothes people at Gillette, they also at the airport and other places that are really looking for like a Homeland Security theme thing. They're not looking for criminals, they're looking for bad actors that are intent on causing harm to a venue, to people, that sort of thing. And in the past, our plainclothes group was very detached. We've formed a new alliance with the state police. We do a joint roll call, and that partnership is paid off in the last year. It's a much more seamless operation with the two agencies, cooperation that's never been seen in history that I'm aware of. Some of the major crimes, they deal with a lot of outside agencies that we work with quite regularly. The four of us are all in NORPAC Task Force. That's Norfolk County Police Anti-Crime and Corruption Unit. Not super active, but when that group gets together, there's usually something bigger going on. There's usually a multi-agency drug investigation, things of that nature, and we use each other for support with a small group. For example, that marijuana grow at the house fire, just serving a search warrants and collecting all that stuff would be impossible for 3 or 4 people to do. So we make a phone call, a text message goes out, and 6 to 8 people are here in a half hour, and that are all fully sworn, fully trained. They can operate within Foxborough. We can operate in their towns, and we all have concurrent jurisdiction. One of our members is on the Metro Elect investigative team as well. There's several crime labs in the area we make use of, and just some of the crimes that we investigated last year were robbery, rape, homeland security issues, breaking and entering, motor vehicle theft, felony larcenies, some serious assault and batteries, aggravated assaults, things of that nature, firearms, and drug cases. The cash is seized. That's $30,000 that was seized from a person that was manufacturing fentanyl pills at the Guard Motel. Sex crimes, this is something that sadly, unfortunately, we're kind of inundated with, and we have been for several years now. There was a massive spike during COVID. Our total number was almost up into triple digits, and this isn't necessarily rape. This is all sorts of sexual assault, which could be indecent touching, touching over the clothes, touching under the clothes, all sorts of other things. The biggest thing to point out is that all of these suspects were known to the victim. Foxborough hasn't had any cases of you think like the person jogging that's afraid getting dragged off. That doesn't happen. Every single one of our cases is a known offender, known victim. There's relationship, whether they're dating, whether they're family, whether they're acquaintances, whether they're neighbors. It's always been a known person. We haven't seen the issue of any stranger-based situations, which is good, but it is also still sad for the victims, because in every case, it's potentially somebody that was trusted to them. All of our detectives, our domestic violence officers, and 3 supervisors, myself, Sergeant Collins, and Sergeant Hoffman, are all trained in sexual assault investigation. What we found, particularly during COVID, this has kind of petered off a little bit, but many of the cases that were brought to our attention were disclosed to therapists. Somebody had sought some sort of therapy or counseling, and they made a disclosure, and then we were notified. We've also gotten a lot of disclosures. We do real intensive domestic violence follow-up. I'll talk about that when I get to the grants. But so We have a team of 4 that, if there's a domestic violence case, they make an effort to follow up with the person, see what resources we can offer. And we're finding that what might just be a verbal argument with a couple one night, a couple days later, when there's a follow-up call, all of a sudden, when you peel back the onion, there's years of horrific things that have been going on, and crimes get disclosed, all sorts of things. So we'll get to that. We follow a victim-centered approach. That was we signed a pledge with PERF, the Police Executive Research Forum, back in 2017, 18-ish. And this was an interesting thing, because before that, I mean, the standard, we've all been doing this a long time, the standard, if somebody came forward and reported something, we would take the report, and if they said, well, I don't want to do anything about it right now, well, okay, case closed, and we go on to the next thing. We'd never call them back. Now it's really, we let the victim steer the pace of the investigation. We've had victims who say, I don't want to do anything right now. They call back a few months later, and we treat it as if nothing has happened. I think in the past, you would have seen a more negative view of that person who wasn't ready to go forward with something or do something before we really signed on to this. And this wasn't just Foxborough. This is industry-wide. This is kind of a game changer with how we do business with. It's really with domestic violence and sex assault victims. We really let them be in the driver's seat and lead things. And the nice thing for us is the Norfolk County Child Advocacy Center. That's the house on Payson Road next to the old auditorium behind the police station. That's where any child, generally child sexual abuse, but also child abuse, when the children need to be interviewed or a sane interview conducted, it's done there. So the nice thing for us is that resource is in Foxborough. If you live in Quincy and something happens to you, you've got to find the means to come out to Foxborough to have the child interviewed. We have it right here. So it's a huge benefit for us. Moving on to more fun things, grants. Been real successful getting money from the Gaming Commission. FY22 got $83,000 for training and equipment. We spent that one down to 0. I think we might have even overspent that slightly. We got a vehicle and a lot of training money. Last year I got $77,000 for training. I think last check I've got about $41,000 left. But I think it's about $10,000 outstanding they owe us. There's about $30,000 left. And that grant actually, I've been operating on these as if they're one-year grants. The grant's actually good till 2026, but I'm going to spend it by July. And I put in for, I think, $104,000 this year with them. I think that was the right number. And that's really bolstered our training budget. That's gotten our accident investigation, crash reconstruction, which is a huge endeavor. The class itself's over $1,000. It's 3 components. They're 80 hours each. It's 240 hours just to get somebody certified. And then beyond that, there's about a dozen, it's well more than that, but there's about a dozen other 40-hour classes that are all different components of it. Each one of those is over $1,000. And then there's the cost of either paying the person overtime to go to the training, paying overtime to cover their shift. These are things we've never been able to do, but the Gaming Commission, we were able to get that done. DPH, $125,000 for them. They're offsetting 15% of the salary of our 4 officers in the domestic violence unit. There's a substantial portion for training overtime specific to domestic violence and sex assault issues, and overtime to cover the DV unit, anything they may do outside of their normal hours. And we've used that for giving people rides to court, giving people rides to the hospital, giving people rides to transportation to other victim services, helping people with restraining orders, all sorts of things. And we also have money for victim direct assistance, which we're basically using in form of gift cards. So if we run into a situation where somebody, and we have this, due to the nature of the draw to Foxborough, we have a lot of transient people in hotels, and we'll find people in a situation in a hotel room, and now all of a sudden that situation domestic violence has occurred, sexual violence has occurred, and what do we do with this person? They have no means, they have no money. We have gift cards we can give them to cover the cost of another hotel room, transportation, food, clothing, whatever it may be. So this is all very new. It's all been, this all just rolled out to us in October. EOPS, we got a $125,000 body-worn camera grant. However, EOPS kind of threw us a curveball and said, you can't just go out and buy body-worn cameras and get everything and put them into service. You have to have a policy approved by your union, and you have to have it collectively bargained with your union. So EOPS effectively made it a collective bargaining issue and kind of took away the chief's ability to implement. So we'll see where that goes, but we have the money should we get collective bargaining before there's a tight deadline, but we may be able to. $3,000 we've gotten from the Bridge Academy. I'll talk about that after what that is, but that's MPTC. They're giving us money back for training for some of our reserve officers to bring them up to speed. We just got actually a payment came in today. And like I said, Lieutenant Chamberlain does the highway safety grants and the bulletproof vest grants, and those are some reimbursements, more fun stuff. Just real quick on our fleet, we've got our frontline vehicles are basically all Ford Police Interceptors. It's a fancy word for saying a Ford Explorer. We've got a Ford F-150 we got through grant money from the Gaming Commission, and the Animal Control is an F-150, and we have a Chevy Tahoe for the K-9 officer. We have a couple of Harley Davidson motorcycles, a couple of Polaris SUVs, and then a variety of unmarked vehicles for detectives, command staff, etc. A little bit of about the fleet, and then gets into the budget. What we're seeing right now is the mileage is not indicative of the real life of the car. We're seeing our patrol cars, we run them frontline for about 5 years, and the other 5 years they have about 85,000 miles on it. What we're seeing is they have north of 10,000 hours on them, some of them over 15,000 hours. So this is the equivalent to somebody's personal car with having 250 to 300,000 miles on it when you look at the hours and the idle hours that are on these things. And with our unmarked fleet, we're getting a lot more life out of them because they're driven a lot less. But what we're finding with those is the challenges become, it's just you end up with a 10 or 12-year-old car that's lived outside its whole life. So rust rot. And then obviously the police electronics have kind of a lifespan. So some of the upfitting equipment, it just gets to the point at 10 or 11 years old where the car needs to be replaced because the various electronics just aren't, the lifespan isn't that long. Some of the challenges we face with fleet right now, vehicle costs have gone up 20% on the various state bid lists over the past 2 years, and we're expecting another increase next year. Accessories are a little less, but all the upfit stuff, the cages, the blue lights, that sort of thing is up 10%. Parts have gone up over 20%, and our repairs are bleeding us slowly. These Fords, there's two big notorious problems. One is the water pump, the other is the PTU, which is the translation for transmission. And there's a dollar amount of what the dealership gets for us when those things go, because those end up being dealership repairs. And the other issue we get is all our vehicles are all-wheel drive now, so they go through tires a lot faster than the old rear-wheel drive Crown Vics. A set of tires is almost $900 for a vehicle. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit because this is taking a long time. Training mandates, basically, the state's mandating what you see on the top here, in-service, firearms, taser, that's 52 hours. We promise our people an additional 16 hours of professional development. There's mandatory requirements for our SROs. In addition to that, use of force instructors, firearm instructors, less lethal, SWAT, K-9, they all have substantially increased training requirements. The Post Commission eliminated the Reserve Academy, so all police officers have the same training now, so there's a bridge program. Some of our legacy reserves that had gone through a shortened academy to work part-time as a reserve officer are going through this bridge program. Others are leaving us, and this is a phased by their last name. Right now we're in the middle of the alphabet. Next year we get to the last group, so we're seeing some do this program, some leave, but it's all at a cost. We have to provide them a police car, ammunition. We have to provide them a medical exam. It's a big commitment for them. And then if they don't work a certain number of hours, I believe it's 2,700. There's a date in 2027 where the certification falls off anyway. So that's been quite an undertaking, obviously at a cost. But what it has done is standardize the training across the board. So all 70 people in the department now are treated the same, which is good, but it's also a challenge because that's 70 people that need to shoot X number of rounds, 70 people that need to have a taser. It gets very expensive. And then the FTO program, that's its own beast in terms of hours. Real quick, I know the chief has a budget presentation, but our training budget hovers around that $80,000 mark, and he's increased it the past few years, but at a very rough average of $66 an hour, which is our detail rate, so it's a kind of a fair average of what overtime would cost across the board. Our budget funds the training, the state minimum mandated training for 23 people. And the reserves have a separate line item, but there are some of us, we work Monday through Friday. We don't cost anything to go to training, but that's just for the state minimum. So we've supplemented that a lot with grants. I've kind of run a part-time business out of hosting training in the McGinty room, and we get free seats for that. So We've always got something running there, and we're exploiting every loophole possible to save money, but it's expensive. The one thing that has saved us is in-service training has been virtual for the last 2 years. We don't know if that's going to continue next year. So that saves a lot of money because we're getting people to do their in-service on duty. When they go back to full in-person, that's 40 hours that the person's gone, and most of them need to be replaced. So that's where the big chunk of the budget goes. Last year, through these grants, we delivered over 1,700 hours specialty training to our staff. That was an average of 45 hours per officer. Beyond that, state limited. Some of the topics are down there. I'll save time, not go through them all, but there was a lot of stuff. You'll see it in the slide deck. Equipment procurement, everything's gotten expensive. I do a lot of our purchasing. Ammunition went up 15%. Less lethal, those are the beanbag rounds, and our less lethal shotgun that we'd use potentially against somebody with a knife or somebody that's emotionally disturbed and armed to try to save from using lethal force. Those, when I started, were about $1 and change a round. It's $5 per round. Every officer, all 70, need to shoot 10 rounds per year, plus we need a stockpile to keep. So basically the translation there is that's $5,000 a year just to have that equipment and keep people trained in it. Tasers, we just got, I was able to negotiate a 10% discount with them just by, it was creative. But that's a substantial cost. And they got us by the hook because they're the only manufacturer that makes an electronic control weapon. And they put a 5-year lifespan on their weapon. And they say after 5 years, it's not under warranty. We can't guarantee it's going to work properly. We can't guarantee what will happen if you use this on somebody. And we won't insure you with our $1 million liability if you use a product more than 5 years old on somebody. So they've basically gotten us into a 5-year replacement cycle. And again, some of the things expensive. We're purchasing for a 70-member agency, which is new to us now. Radio equipment's gone up 10 to 12%, 26-week lead time if we need something. New employee upfit and costs have gone through the roof, and there's a huge lead time. And then some of the normal stuff that everyone deals with in the business world, ink, computers, toners, all that stuff. Technology with the licensing, and everyone wants you to license products now. All that stuff has gone up, and it's gone up big. The last thing I have, NIBRS, this is a National Incident-Based Reporting. Very boring stuff, but the FBI requires us to submit, it's monthly, and then once a year they publish a report. The left-hand side, the bold, those are what they consider their part one, their serious crimes. So we haven't had a homicide here in several years. Forcible rape, well, like I said, we did see a decline in that. This doesn't cover the other terms of sexual assault. Robbery went from 2 to 3, aggravated assaults down, burglary. And their definition of burglary is a little different than a breaking and entering in Massachusetts. Their definition of burglary is a little more restrictive. And then larcenies did go down. Theft went down during COVID. Theft really spiked. We've seen it kind of relax, which is nice. And the motor vehicle theft has gone down. A lot of the motor vehicle theft stuff stemmed from the hotels. And with the COVID occupancies going down and it back to being tourists, things like that, we've seen less issues there. That is it. I probably went over time, so here we go. The deputy.
Thanks. That's usually my job. So.
Just a little. Just a little.
We good? We're good. Good evening. I've been here numerous times with all of you. I'm Deputy Chief Rich Noonan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I oversee the daily operations of the department, but tonight I'm going to speak about 2 successes in 2022. One of which I already spoke to you about is we received our first initial state accreditation. And then secondly, I'm going to talk about our operations at Gillette Stadium. In August of 2022, we became an accredited department. The state accreditation is overseen by the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. The commission is overseen by 10 police chiefs and 1 member from the Mass Municipal Association. They are the professional body that guides accreditation in Massachusetts. As I said before, us receiving accreditation as a town and as a police department is something that everyone should be proud of. A, it provides guidance on how we conduct our operations, and B, it shows that we're committed to providing the best police experiences and the best operations, and that we're committed to excellence. So for the town to see us be accredited, they should be proud, and as an agency, we should be proud. Accreditation is the best measure for a police department to compare itself to the established best practices around the country and region. These practices change on a quarterly basis, a daily basis, based on incidents that happen around the country or around the world. We're constantly changing and evolving. That's why we became an accreditation department, to prove that we are one of the best.
In 2021, the Massachusetts engaged with the Massachusetts Police Reform Act. They wanted professional police departments. So they said, okay, each department needs to be certified. We've already been certified. We're at the top notch. We're at the highest level we can be at Massachusetts. We're accredited. To receive accreditation, it's two phases. One is the internal review, where we look at all our department policies and procedures. We need to make sure that all of our policies and procedures meet the standards set forth by the Accreditation Commission. For us to be accredited, we need to meet 326 standards. So we need to make sure that our policies meet those standards and also meet our practices. We can't have standards that we don't follow. So we work really hard as supervisors and commanders to make sure that our department members are following our policies and procedures. To be accredited, you need to prove compliance. So we can't just have simple policies. A lot of the accreditation process has to do with compliance and proving that we are doing what we say we do. All of our standards meet the best practices in policing. They also meet all federal and state laws and also meet all the requirements sent forth by the 2021 Massachusetts Police Reform Act. The second phase is the external review. This is when assessors come through from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. They come and look at our department. They come and do a tour of our department. They look at all of our policies and procedures and all the standards and double check our proofs of compliance. A greater portion of that day is spent with the assessors looking at our language and our policies to make sure it meets the standards, but also making sure that we have the proofs of compliance. Examples of proof of compliance would be making sure that we're holding our daily roll call, making sure we're doing our prisoner checks as we're supposed to. They ensure that we're doing our use of force annual analysis. They want to see that we're doing what we say we're doing. I'm an assessor. I've been on a lot of assessments where departments, it takes a long time to get through their assessments because they just don't have the documentation. They just don't have the appropriate language. So we were fortunate to get through in a day and a quarter. There's a saying in accreditation that every day is an accreditation day. And I didn't really, when I first heard it, I didn't really understand it, but now I do. Now whether we're accredited, we don't rest on our laurels. We have 3 years to become reaccredited. During those 3 years, we need to conduct our analysis and make sure that our policies and procedures are still up to date, we're meeting state and federal laws, and that we're doing what we say we do. As things change in policing, we need to update our policies. We got accredited under the 6th edition. They're now transitioning to the 7th edition. So what that means is they're going to change all their standard numbers. They're going to change a lot of their language. So we need to realistically start from scratch again. So we're really starting from day one to make sure that we're starting at the beginning of the book and going forward. Something new that the Police Accreditation Commission is going to do going forward is they're going to do quarterly and yearly inspections of our proofs of compliance. So they could cold call us and say, hey, we need to see your yearly use of force analysis, and we need to provide that. So we can't just rest on our laurels. We need to stay on top of this every day, and it's a very time-consuming task. Our second success in 2022 was our police operations at Gillette Stadium. In 2022, our department planned for, implemented plans, and provided professional police services for 54 events at Gillette Stadium. During those 54 events, we provided safety and security for 1.2 million people. If you see up there, I call it the tale of 2 police departments, right? We are the smallest town police department in the country that's responsible for protecting an NFL stadium. I talked to police chiefs and commanders from all over the country, and they're shocked that we're only a 39 officer department, but yet we have the responsibility of protecting an NFL security. As Lieutenant Chamberlain, Lieutenant Fitzgerald just briefed the community on, everyone knows what we do on a day-to-day basis. We provide protection for 18,500 people with 39 police officers. On any event day, our population grows within a very centralized location of 75,000 people, requiring up to 200 police officers. So how do we do that? How do we take a large mass gathering in a centralized location and become a large city with one of the largest police departments on one single day? We rely upon our collaboration with our trusted partners. We have our local partners that we deal with that we work with on every event, such as the Mass State Police, the Foxborough Fire, Team Up Security, the FBI, and Homeland Security. But for the Foxborough Police Department, we need help. We have 39 officers. We need to fill up to close to 200 positions. We rely upon our mutual aid agreements throughout the southeastern Massachusetts, and those are some of the departments that help us. We have officers that come from Cape Cod up to Boxford off 495 out to Worcester County to help support us. When these departments come to Gillette Stadium, they're working under the command and control of the Foxborough Police Department. They're our officers, but they come and help us, fortunately, because we wouldn't be able to function without them. The time it takes to coordinate and plan for an event and to staff these events is, it's too many to talk about. I feel like I'm more of a car salesman during the week when we're filling these details, because I'm just begging and borrowing to get officers to come up. And all these officers that come to this to help us, they have responsibilities in their own communities. So fortunately, those chiefs have authorized those officers to come help us. And again, as Lieutenant Chamberlain said, it's part of that metro, that community that we have. Our event days are broken into 3 phases. The pre-event, which is when everyone comes into town. We need to make sure that we move the vehicles up to Route 1, up to the parking lots, and then get to the gates. Unfortunately, in New England, everyone likes to tailgate late so no one gets to the game early, and this is what we have. This is a large group of people coming to one gate prior to the event. We have officers deployed in and around that area to make sure that everyone acts orderly, but more importantly, protect their safety. We rely upon our assets from Metrolec SWAT, the Mass State Police Bomb Squad, the National Guard CST team to provide us support of resources that we don't have. The next phase is the event stage. That's when everyone's inside the stadium. All those departments that come, we believe in the community policing model. We gave them a section of the stadium. They're responsible for their section. We did that so everyone knows their roles and responsibilities. They feel comfortable with what they're doing, but also so they can engage in community policing. During the Patriots games, they can know the season ticket holders. They can know the security and establish relationships. And that's worked very well for us. We bring all these officers in, and we want to make sure that they succeed, because their success leads to our success. So we take that role and responsibility greatly. And not every event is the same. Not every Patriots game is the same. We have different dignitaries. We have different issues going on in the world that we have to pay attention to. Same thing for concerts. Every group brings in different demographics. One night's totally different from the next night, even if it's the same act. As much as we take our responsibilities providing protection and security for all our fans, we want to make sure that the fans have a good time when they come to Gillette. We still engage in community policing because it's representative of the people that come to visit Foxborough. Not only Gillette, but Foxborough as a whole. The amount of time it takes for planning an event, actually from post-event, when the event ends, our day doesn't end. We have people stay at Patriot Place in the hotels and traffic getting home. But more importantly, the post-event, the days after, our responsibilities to close that event takes hours, if not days. We have assaults that detectives have to follow up on. We have use of force reports we need to review. We have missing people. We have lost articles. So after an event, we're dealing with that event for 3 or 4 days afterwards. And then in that meantime, we're preparing for the next event. The amount of time it takes to prepare for these events it's time consuming. It's now March of 2023, and we're already planning for the Army-Navy game in 2023, and then the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Gillette Stadium, Foxborough Police is going to get 2 of the biggest shows in international venues coming up in the next 3 years. And we're proud to be preparing for them, and we're proud to represent the town when they come to our community. Thank you.
So that's the year in review. Sorry, I went longer than we downsized it. It's massive. So
A lot of good stuff.
It's a lot of good stuff, and we just touch upon little bits and pieces of it to share it with the board and the residents. So now I think we have phase 2. On just I'm going to go quick on a budget presentation. I think this is my 4th time doing it. So, but the first time for the board.
Thank you.
I was figuring if you have the presentation, you can take notes.
Scribble.
Scribble?
Thank you. I already have it. The focus is really on the positions, Chief, if you could really spend time on that, if you would.
Yep.
Thank
So we'll get right to the meat and potatoes. So this is, real quick, this is just the structure of the agency. You'll see a couple of positions. There was the unfilled traffic position, the unfilled lieutenant position, and 2 open patrol slots. My original presentation to Bill was for 4 positions: a lieutenant, a traffic officer, and 2 patrol officers to help fill the shifts. That was my original presentation, and Bill is tough. Just want to let you know, nothing gets by him, nothing's easy, and that was cut to 2. Again, the goal of this budget is to address the staffing shortages, ask for an additional lieutenant position to help with the administrative work, and provide that traffic officer that the community keeps asking for, the boards keep asking for, the residents keep asking for it. Obviously maintaining the equipment of the agency with the cruiser purchases. This is just a little snapshot of our schedule, and when I talk about staffing, so what you'll see is on the midnight shift, the 8 to 4 shift, and the evening shift, we have a sergeant, we have 4 patrol officers assigned. Based on our staffing numbers, when an officer takes the day off, it creates overtime. We're 1 for 1. We do have 1 extra body on the 8 to 4 and 1 extra on the 4 to 12, but essentially, that is, and you'll see where people take their time off, they take a day off, we have to fill it with overtime. This is a constant grind every single day, every single weekend, all over the summer. Patrol staffing numbers, just to give you a little snapshot, 2001, we had 30 police officers. We had 9,600 calls for service, which came to the equivalent of about 344 calls per officer. 2012, our calls for service are up to 21,000, and now each officer is doing 678. 2023, now with 39 police officers, we're up to 27, it's actually 28,000 when I did it, I just ran it year to date. So now our calls per officer are pushing almost 800. So the call volume's going up, the amount of time spent on these calls is increasing, and we're just not growing fast enough, and it's a concern. When you look at where a police agency should be, if you took the amount of police officers in Massachusetts today, you take all their agencies, you divide it by the population, it's about 2.3. That's what Massachusetts is 16,434 police officers. The population's 6,978,000, and there's all different numbers to play with that. So at a bare minimum, if we didn't have Gillette Stadium, we didn't have all the hotels, we didn't have all the liquor licenses, we should be sitting around 42 police officers. We're sitting at 39. Currently, we need a sergeant and 4 patrol officers to run the shift. So right now, based on the amount of calls for service, we're rolling out the least amount of officers per shift.
Mike, that feels like the most important and impactful page.
Okay.
I mean, that really tells the story and the numbers.
And to me, it's been eye-opening, the more I learn how much you guys are doing in-house. Like, I know I brought this up before, but it was like mind-blowing to me. Like, Lee is processing, imagine all these officers that are coming, she's literally there from like, it feels like sun up to sundown processing these. I didn't realize like you're doing your own billing, like your own procurement. We have procurement officer, like how can we help you guys from an operations standpoint? Because, with every like layer of the onion, there's stuff that I'm still always like, wow.
So we have 1,568 employees for the police department that we're responsible for. The town is 268.
Yeah.
So that's how many that we have to bring in and we do the payroll for, and that we make sure all the W-2s done, we swear them in, mutual aid agreements, and the lieutenant makes sure that they're in compliance and that actually certified to work as a police officer. So that I'm going as fast as I can, but those are just measurable, tangible numbers about what's going on with the police department.
I think it's important too, like, I've heard this a lot. People will compare the population of the town, back when to now. Like, the more we hear from you guys, how complicated everything is and the paperwork and the hours that are required, behind the scenes as well. It's hard. I understand why people make that comparison, but it's just a different time and a different day and age, really, right?
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
The documentation, the requirements,
Yep.
the job has changed drastically. This is a kind of like a third-person view of what Foxborough Police Department's doing compared to our summer communities. And when we talk about calls for service, we are far and above all the other towns. Hard to believe, Mansfield's got 27,000 residents. I think Easton's probably 28,000, but we're busier because of the nature of our businesses in town, our liquor licenses, the traffic coming through. So that just kind of, where do we stand as a comparison? That highlights it.
Is the stadium a big factor here?
No, believe it or not, the stadium doesn't even count for my calls for service because it doesn't, we create one call for game day and we use the state's, we merge with the state police, an active call. So they're entering their calls and we are, and it gets saved as a PDF and we just save it to look back down the road. When we start rolling out a CAD system where we're actually dispatching on game day and adding to the call numbers, we'd be looking several hundred at a minimum per game, per event.
Big numbers.
Yeah.
10% at least.
Yeah,
per
I
year.
don't even know. Yeah, easily.
So the 27,000 number has nothing to do with Patriot Place.
It had, no, Patriot Place it would. Yes, it would on
Stadium
Patriot Place.
game day
But on game day, we
yeah.
create one call.
Yeah.
We could have an accident on Mechanic Street, so that would be in there. But we don't capture all of the dispatch units that are constantly, the hundreds of officers who are being to Section 6, Section 103, medical in the field or out in the parking lot. Those are all handled internally with that dispatch.
So I think I'm gonna get into, when I went to the AdCom meeting last week, I'm gonna start off with, I couldn't be more grateful or more respectful of our police department and our fire department for that matter. Where I have the problem is it's hard for me to grasp that whatever is pulling you guys, whether it's Patriot Place, whether it's a game day, whether it's just, up there on a, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, busy time up there. It's hard for me to feel like we pass that on to the taxpayers in our town. Like I said that with such respect and admiration for, I've 3 years on advisory committee. We heard different people given the budget, but heard and the numbers and what you guys have to do. So for me, that's not where I struggle at all. I just want to make that perfectly clear because you guys are great. I don't, that's where I struggle. I struggle with, and I said this, at the AdCom meeting, Bill might have thrown out there, geez, we should be getting more, per ticket than we do, because I brought up that I think there's a much bigger discussion. Oh, Doc was there too. There's a much bigger discussion that has to happen, with the craft organization. Because
a lot of this is not the craft group. This is the housing units that are being built, Foxborough Boulevard, 10 Fisher Street. Okay, that's the hotels. We have 9 hotels in Foxborough. We have the most hotels that are being built. We are generating calls for service as a town too.
Yeah.
It isn't just
but I just feel
one
like,
Patriot Place.
No disrespect, but as I was listening to, I heard a number of times, the stadium, Patriot Place, the stadium. And so that's where I go. The other problem that I kind of had just with this, this doesn't have anything so much to do with you guys. It's more, we have a budget, and then all of a sudden, the night before we have to pass this on to AdCom, we're giving an amendment. And also, what was brought up, I think Dan Peterson questioned, we're given here that not all 6 positions, not just the 2 positions for you guys, are going to bring in an extra $300,000 into our budget, which Dan kind of questioned. I thought it was a small number for 6 positions. Then Bill said those positions are coming in January. So this is really a $600,000, probably closer to $700,000, to the budget. So we're getting, getting up. So that's where I struggle.
Can I circle back on that
Sure,
part?
absolutely.
And when I said from the beginning, I presented 4 positions, not 2.
Yeah,
It got cut to 2.
yeah.
But I'm telling you, I'm trying to say why, as a department head, I have an obligation to the residents and to this board to say, this is what your police department's doing, and this is what we need. So what you'll see is, when you talk about understaffed, when your shifts are 1 for 1, you have no ability to absorb any of the time off. It's 1 for 1. You have a burnout factor. Policing 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they all wanted to work overtime. They don't want to work overtime. They want to work some, not like 1 for 1. It's exhausting. It's burning them out. Okay?
Like you said, it's become a completely different job.
It is. Double income, married parents, kids, people staying at home. I respect that. It's better quality of life for them instead of working 80 hours a week and having health issues. But with the staffing model that's been built, and I'll tell you, the town of Foxborough has built Let's Manage by overtime. Let's not hire employees, let's just manage with overtime. Not this group, but I'm going back 15, 20 years, and that was the police agents, that was the police model. Just increase overtime, we'll get through.
Yeah.
But we have no flexibility. If we have a critical incident, we have a use force incident where the district attorney comes in and says, okay, we gotta investigate this, you're on administrative leave 8, 9 months. How do I fill the shifts? We're just getting lucky right now. As a department head, I can see this is a weakness. This is a threat to the agency. By losing, we have someone involved in a use of force incident, long-term injury, multiple people. Some of my staff, they're older. They have a medical condition, and they're out on FMLA time off. Who's gonna work the shifts? Eventually, you cannot, I had to implement a forced policy to force people on a rotation, to force them to work. So, based on the staffing, there's no bodies, Stephanie, there's no bodies. There's no overtime is ever spent at the Foxborough Police Department unless it serves a purpose. $1 is never spent just to spend. It's to fill a need that the town either asks, or at a bare minimum, I'm meeting my minimum staffing of 3 police officers and a sergeant and 1 on the desk. And that's where it's all going. Again, workload distribution. So 88% of the time off on the overtime is because of under the collective bargaining agreement. They've earned their time off and they want to take a vacation day. And they're obligated to it. I can't even deny them. They're allowed 3 officers off per shift, per the contract. I can't just say no. They're allowed to it, so I have to backfill it.
Isn't your sick time low, too?
So I have a number. My average sick time, if you take the whole department in the last year, is 8 days. Take it over the course of the department. That includes their family sick. I have 67 little kids who the police officers are parents to. Kids get sick. They get 4 family sick days. So you know what? If you use your 4 family sick days to take care of your kids, they're only using 4 days a year. They work nights, they work weekends, they work off shift. Money's not being lost on sick time. It's not abuse. And I had a couple staff with long-term medical health issues that really kind of took a big portion of it. And I break it all down. I actually have every single hour, every single staff member, and what they do, and we do audits on it. This is an example, and I'm not going to get into it, about their hours, what it costs, training, time off. So, like, when you build a budget, someone say, where'd the budget come from? Did you just take the existing budget? Add 2%. I started off with a zero budget and built out everybody's hour, everybody's salary, what their time off is, what their requirements are to come up with the baseline budget. And I think you saw that a couple of years ago, and you said, wow, I didn't know what it meant.
Exactly.
Well, that's where it came from. That came from the ground up. That was...
Yeah. And I think I specifically told you that I was quite impressed with your, especially the first time you were presenting a budget that I had heard.
So, and when you ask where does patrol overtime go, we have to fill shifts. If someone's injured on duty, I got to fill their shift. If they take military leave, they have bereavement leave. If they get holed over, it's 11:30, you got to call, and you're stuck till 3 in the morning, you got to pay them overtime. If they're working out of grade as a senior officer, has to work as a sergeant, they get an hour. If we hire people, an FTO stipend is given to cover that person for a shift. Metro call-outs, mutual aid call-outs throughout the town, permits that the town issues for parades and all that. That just comes out of the police department budget. There's no like pool I get to choose from that comes with the permit to pay for it. Founder's Day, all that, town elections, I have to cover all that. Animal control officer call-outs, I cover all that too. And then, so that was the police officer positions.
Yeah.
Get some more bodies to help support the staff. Because right now, and I think, Leah, you asked, well, what are department heads doing? Know what I'm doing? I'm running some of my shifts below a standard that I didn't see when I got hired in 1999. On some midnight shifts, I have 3 police officers on the road. I can't handle 2 critical calls at once. So when you ask what we're doing, I'm rolling the dice. It's inappropriate, but if you don't have the bodies, what are you gonna do? And I can't just keep forcing every officer every Friday, every Saturday to work overtime because 1 or 2 people want to take the day off. And when we talk about a lieutenant, I think, we talked about the administrative duties that the lieutenants are responsible for. So real quickly, this team right here, how long can they go before they can't take a vacation or book a weekend? They're responsible every single Friday and Saturday to oversee all the bars at Patriot Place. The shift sergeant can't do it. He can't run a shift and then be responsible for 9 police officers. Alcohol-related incidents are high liability. They involve use of force. Having lieutenants who are liquor control agents to handle the problems up there is an absolute must. So each one of my staff here, at a minimum, has to work 41 weekends. Not 41 total. They're all working 41 weekends, no matter what. And, and it's tough. And what do we have to do? Look at the events that we got coming. This isn't going away. I'll tell you, the Gillette operation and the craft group, they're fantastic. They are top-notch. They are professional. But they have a job to do, and they're a business. And what they want to do is they want to fill that place. They want to fill it 365. That's their job, and we have to support it. So we have Army, Navy, we have 18 Revs game, 10 football games, 10 concerts, Monster, it just goes on and on. And again, every member of the command staff on a major event under the incident command model all have a job to do. This is my deputy is the operations. I have interior and exterior control. The exterior control right now is downtown booking. It's traffic, it's SWAT, it's detectives, it's Patriot Place. My span of control, I can't have a lieutenant overseeing traffic and then wondering what's going on with the suspicious package at Patriot Place. You can't be 2 places at once. I'm finding, and you see in policing, when you don't have supervision, that's when you have a breakdown. So I don't have 200 Foxborough police officers. I have out-of-town officers who, we really need to make sure that our supervisors are on top of and we're utilizing them. So that's where that position would clearly, and there's a need for it. And lastly, this is just a couple of things. This is Route 1. This is Gillette. This is what their goal is to fill that place and be successful. And they're great at it. And Patriot Place, we look at, we have 13.8 million visitors coming, okay? We're a town of 18.6. You take that number and divide that into Foxborough, that means we go up 37,000 people per day. That's how many people are coming to our town. So now we're like a 57,000 person community.
But see, Mike, that's the part where I would like to see, like, everything.
I tell you, Stephanie, it's not my job to go after or ask a business for money.
Well,
it's my job to present to the board.
Exactly.
Okay? No, to the board, a budget that's based on the needs of my agency with factual, analytical information, and that's what I'm doing. I can't, how you want to get that money, that's on the board.
But do you understand, that's why, when I hear this part of it, like, when you tell me you're every day and to replace, just for business in Foxborough, I'll give you that all day long. You know that. I don't know those numbers. I believe you. I sit here and I listen to that. But this is the part that I can't bite on. Like, maybe you need even more officers than the 2, maybe more than the 4.
I didn't ask for 2.
I know, but I'm just saying, maybe that is the case.
Oh, absolutely is the case.
But when I hear this part of it, that's why I want to.
I feel like you're saying it without saying it. Are you saying the crafts need to be paying more? Are you saying
I'm not saying that.
No, but I'm asking
No, no, no,
Stephanie.
no, no,
I'm not
Are you
saying that.
saying, like, are we being compensated correctly for the additional responsibilities we have?
And that's what I'm questioning.
Okay.
That's what I'm definitely
But
questioning.
that's an us problem.
Exactly,
Not a them problem.
exactly. But also, in some of the things for how the process went, this has nothing to do with you. I probably should have waited till next meeting to bring up, being told that this is affecting a budget by a certain way. But then me finding out at AdCom that was not told to us here, we were presented with, this is.
I haven't presented it to you yet. We're talking about it tonight.
Yeah.
No. When we were given this last week
I did
with
not
Marie
get into
here
it.
and George.
We discussed it, I discussed it at the AdCom meeting.
We were told at our last meeting, this is only gonna, all 6 positions, this budget is going to affect us by 300,000.
That's what's in the budget, right. But we didn't have a discussion about what the full
Which
ramifications.
isn't correct, because when we were told that.
Well, I would have told you that if I gave the presentation.
Yeah,
but
I
didn't.
think I don't want to spend too much time, Steph, kind of rehashing the same thing. I don't like the way the budget process went this year either. But we are where we are, so we've got to move forward, and we all get it. None of us at this table, we all wish we just saw the 6 positions from the get-go. But that's not what happened,
Yeah.
and that's not where we are.
Yeah.
So we get it. We're all acknowledging that right now. So just before we kind of keep coming back to that same thing, I get it, and I think that we're all on the same page with that. But, here's where we are, and we've got to listen to it. And, tomorrow's March, like May's coming fast. So I want to let them present what they want without kind of getting into our issues, because it's not fair to them.
No, not fair to them, but part of him showing us his budget talks about Patriot Place and what the struggle is there. That's why I'm bringing it up now while we're talking about it. Now, listening to what you were telling me, and then this is the first time I did, out of fairness to myself, I came in about 20 minutes late to AdCom. So when you're telling me, I didn't hear that I need 2 more positions just to get by on a daily basis. I came in and I heard a lot of talk about Patriot Place and what happens on a game day. So that's why I was questioning what are our taxpayers paying for what's going on up there? So now that's why I'm trying to figure out, so what you're saying is the 2 positions you're asking for are just getting you by day to day.
So-
Foxborough, basically Foxborough business.
So my proposal was for 4 positions. A lieutenant, 2 patrol officers to help fill the shifts, and then a traffic officer to deal with all of the traffic requests, needs, surveys, follow-up studies, work with the sidewalk committee. It's, if we do a
Yeah.
public survey, what's one of the top 3 things people will say? Even the last man made sure that he said East Belcher was a racetrack. You know what I mean? Every person will have a concern about traffic.
I've heard about Moore Street, I've heard about Oak Street.
And we're as a police agency, we're obligated to provide real data to the boards, to the residents. And right now, what I have some people kind of doing it, but I don't have that designated person who is assigned to that, is the point of contact for the residents, goes out there, we build the enforcement models, we look at our crash data. When someone has a project planning board page is looking for something, we have our data, we're showing what we're doing on each street. Is it real? Is it valid? Is it a concern? Where do we put sidewalks in town? Guess what? This road is really fast. This is more important. The residents have asked for it endlessly. So it would be irresponsible if I don't try to provide this service to them.
Exactly, and irresponsible for me, because I've already gotten a couple of phone calls as soon as that ad went in the paper, and they're like, what are we talking? More policemen, more firemen, more people at DPW. So that's why I'm kind of want to make sure that this isn't what's driving it. This is part of Patriot Place.
You don't want the taxpayers paying for the stadium.
Exactly. So basically, you're saying your responsibility, that's why I'm trying to do my responsibility, because I've already gotten people that are asking me, and then that's what comes right below.
But honestly,
right below
just
it.
on the flip side, I haven't had anyone reach out to me on those. Not one. I don't know if anyone else has. No. So, I think we all have to balance what we spend and what our department heads need, because let's face it, public safety is probably one of the most important things that we do here. And
I don't disagree at all.
We have to be diligent, but we can't say no to everything? Because if we do, what does that look like?
Well, I can tell you what it looks like
Yeah.
is the last 3 years is the board saying no new positions. Well, eventually, after many, many meetings with AdComs who are chief financial office, they're saying, you're wrong. You never do that. Because now we're in a position, and I won't speak for the fire, but we're 3 years behind on growth and needs that are occurring in the community. So no new positions is not, I mean, when you look at a budget process, I'm not going to criticize anybody, but you can't start with a percentage before you've actually built what your goal is of your department heads first. You have to say, well, what's the department heads need? What does the town need before we say a number? Because trying to squeeze it in, and I'll tell you, every single year I've met my budget. I've never overspent and I've come under every single time. But I'm telling you, right now, when you ask what does the agency need, what do my staff need, what do I need long-term to be sustainable and be successful, I can tell you, not having enough police officers to handle your calls for service and enforcing them on a regular basis is a recipe that's unsustainable. It's not going to work.
And just to add to what the chief said, Chief's right on this. He's 100% right. That the process is flawed in the sense that we started out with a percentage. That's how we've operated for the past several years. And I will tell you that, and that's to why I gave you 2 budgets this year, because I could no longer recommend to you that that's how we should do it. Even when I'm walking out the door, I could not do that in good conscience, because all 3 departments made very compelling arguments as to why they needed those positions. And by the way, I didn't give them all 4 positions in either one of the departments, because I balanced what the board's direction was to me and the balance, the fact that it is an impact on the community cost-wise. And that's why I did the $300,000 cost part-time, so as to actually feather it in as opposed to hitting the whole impact all at once. That's why it was done that way.
Yeah, but it did, Bill, nothing to do with these guys. You told us this is only going to change the budget by 300, but never mentioned that this was half the year. So this is really,
I'm not hiding it, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm saying it to you tonight. It's a $600,000 hit in fiscal year '25. I'm not hiding that.
More than that.
Well, last time, you didn't offer that last time.
I didn't present it to you yet.
We were told.
I didn't present it to you.
Marie was here. You said you had Marie. You told us when you gave us this paper.
I gave you the overview of the entire budget, but I did not give you a presentation about the full impact, because they're here tonight, we're telling you.
You didn't give us the presentation from each department, but you said to us, and you said, I had Marie run the numbers. This is a difference of $300,000 to the existing budget, which is true.
Which is true.
Which is
I'm not lying
true.
about
We're
it.
talking, for this particular budget, where we were last time we met, that's what it was for the budget. Granted, it's going to be more for 2025.
And we deal with it in 2020.
And we're talking about it.
And we're talking about it.
With all due respect, I think we've mentioned it now 3 times, and we're not even through the presentation. We all completely, at least I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I completely see and understand where you're coming from. And I can see, that it's, 1 year versus the next, but we're talking about it. We've talked about it in AdCom, we're talking about it in here. So can we get it, but can we move past that and hear the rest of?
We can. My point basically was, it wasn't said as at AdCom either, until it was questioned, how are we going to fund 6 positions, and then that's when the question was answered. So it wasn't even brought up at AdCom either until it was questioned. So, all right, I'm going to let that go, because, guys, I'm sorry, because this really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, well, that's
It really has nothing to do
what
with
I'm
you.
getting at, is it's
Yeah.
not really for this, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just go real quick to the rest of it. Obviously, the traffic officer position speaks for itself. We've already talked about the need. The residents are asking for it. The boards are asking, planning board's asking for it, selectmen ask for it on a regular basis. And obviously, it's a concern, especially with the sidewalk committee trying to put some of their ideas together where we should best spend the money. It would be helpful. Expenses, real briefly on the budget, it's $13,000, some of the uniforms and some of the mandatory changes to the uniforms for the reserve officers that have to make us in compliance with the uniform policy. 10% increase on just vehicle parts. Not even close, and $2,000 for gas, just because my motorcycle offices blew the budget. I had 2,000 and they just ride and ride, so.
We had no winter, so I feel like
So I had to tell them no, okay?
Well, don't forget, it's because they need high test.
Yeah, it's not in the regular budget anymore, like the cruises, is because the motorcycles need 94% octane.
Okay.
So we have an account at Sunoco, and we don't pay the tax on it, but, there was a $50,000 taser line item that CIP had already approved. We're going for year 2, it's $50,000 a year. The goal was just to make it a line item and not have to go to CIP every single year forever. Bill cut that as well.
Well,
So
it's
where
gonna
does
go-
that sit right now?
It will be in the CIP.
It'll be in
budget.
CIP.
And it'll be capital
That requires further
capital
discussion.
outlay. We have 3 cruises this year. Last year, I can tell you, the lieutenant here, he wheels and deals with every dealer there is in the state, trying to get cars. We didn't even purchase a 2022 last year, did we?
We don't have a 2022 car yet. The
Yeah.
only 2022 we have is a K9, the Chevy Tahoe. All the Fords we're getting are still 21s.
Leftovers,
It's-
trying to make
Well,
money.
that aren't even here yet. Or they are.
I've got 2 more pending for this
Yeah.
year. I've got one that's being built this week. It's a 21, and it's now 2023. The 22s just don't even exist, and I've got one that's up there in the cloud unaccounted for that we're still trying to get our hands on because of the inventory situation.
So there's 60, 70,000 right now, so we're looking at a year and a half, they'll be probably pushing that 85,000, and they'll replace cars that currently have 96, 109,000. Lieutenant already kind of gave you the rundown of miles, idle time, driving time, and what that number is on a.
Most departments still drive American-made or American brands.
Yes.
They do.
A lot of it's a state buying list because we buy off either Greater Boston Police Council, Plymouth County Commissioners. So the only stuff that's on there is really American. Honda and Toyota appear in a couple of places because there's a handful of places that use like Honda Accords for drug cars. So there's a couple of little, but it's Chevy. Right now it's Chevy and Ford. And Dodge is getting out of it, so it's Chevy and Ford are really kind of the options right now.
And I don't think there's aftermarket lights or cages for some, for the,
No, there's
some
a
of the
handful
foreign
of places that have like a Tesla as kind of a novelty thing because everything that's put in there is put in after the fact. And then let me just throw this out there that Ford has now come out and said, do not upfit emergency equipment into electric vehicles. So a bunch of towns went out and got those Mustangs and the pickups that are electric, and now Ford's saying, don't put aftermarket 12-volt equipment in those. So it's a strange situation with fleet stuff right now.
CIP, this year, we will just trying to shoot to replace that 10-year-old transport van. We have to have one. The one we have is 10 years old. The recording system is not close to being compliant in regards to video and audio and the safety restraints. I would never want to be involved in an accident. It's just not in compliance anymore. It's so far gone. Unfortunately, do I really want a transport van? Not really, but I have to have one. If the sheriffs can't produce one, or if we gotta transport people we have Gillette, so we do take custodies in. And then the taser is the 49,000.
Yep.
So, that's essentially the pitch. You kind of went left and right.
Yeah. You know, this is the 4th budget I've seen from you, and you do an excellent job, and your presentations have improved, and your data has improved, and you make a very, very compelling case. And I think we would all say that it's a very compelling case. It's really, the volume and the activity has kind of outstripped the ability to, really pay for it within the budget constraints that we've had. I mean, that's kind of what's
2.87 doesn't do it.
jumping out at me. The only question I had is, there's got to be some offset with overtime and filling these positions. Did you build that in, or?
So, that is the million-dollar question. So, is there a formula? And I've taken 3 budget classes, because I know Seth was going to ask this question. So, on a shift of 5 officers, a midnight day shift, a sergeant and 4 patrolmen, you have 14,600 hours that have to be covered. Okay? That has to happen every single time. So now you take the officers and you deduct how many hours they work, which they start off at 1,944, but because they're on a 4 and 2 schedule, not a 5 and 2. You take out their vacation time, you take out their personal time, you take out an average of 8 sick days, and you take out their holidays that they can take off. So you end up with 1,536 hours that that police officer works. Okay, you times that by the 5 police officers, you come out with 10,752 hours, which means that you are 3,848 hours short on every single shift right now.
Which is more than an FTE.
Well, a full-time police officer would be 1,500 hours. So you're 2.5 officers short right now. And by the way, I times that, when I times the 1.5, I don't times it by 5. I times it by 7 because they have their days off. I know it's getting a little complicated, but it's because they have their days off. So you have 4 officers, you really need 6 because every 2 days, someone has a different day off. So at a minimum, when you have 7 offices, you're already 2.5 offices short every single shift to absorb some of the overtime. You will not absorb all the overtime because that equation essentially means that they're only going to take a vacation day on the day that they're not going to duplicate their days off, which means you're going to take Monday, you're going to take Tuesday, you're going to take Wednesday. It's not going to happen that way. All 3 of you are going to ask for Saturday off. So you're going to have to pay 2 shifts of overtime. And in the other days, you will have a fully staffed complement and maybe have an extra officer working. So I can break down the hours, but it's never going to be a perfect ratio of exactly how to displace the overtime. Will you save overtime? Yes. Do you save enough to justify that? You don't save $100,000 in overtime by hiring 1 police officer. You're not even close. It's not a balance. What happens is we are so far behind in our staffing that there's no cushion. You actually have to have extra bodies first, and then you can start looking at calls for service. You can start looking at allocation. Maybe I only need 3. Say they're all young police officers. They have less time on the books. The day shift has more time off. Maybe you move that 1 person down, increase your day shift because you can absorb because they have more time off on the books. But right now, when you don't have anybody to play with, you don't have any extra bodies, that formula just doesn't work. And I can break it down for you. Yes.
I would just say, Mike, that there's some appropriate level of overtime to allow for flexibility with the staffing and shifts and everything. And this, 2 more officers will bring us closer to whatever that theoretical level is of appropriate overtime, where we're above where we want to be right now, so.
Yeah, it's, now, if you work the night shift and you have court, that's overtime. I can't reassign people on different shifts.
Sure.
Just because they have court in 2 weeks. I can't do that. So, and there's training, if they work midnight to 8, and the training. So training is also not as much of a saver, but sometimes you can pull 1 guy off the shift, send him to training in lieu of shift. You can save it that way. But right now, based on the staffing numbers, you have 1 extra body on the 8 to 4, and you have 1 extra on the 4 to 12. And and then when I say 1 extra, not every single day. That's only 4 out of the 6 days. So that's before anybody takes any day off. Or we have something going on in town and I have to, say we have a parade. Say we have Gillette, we have Gillette. It decreases, and the deputy will say, when we don't have any extra bodies, it decreases the amount of officers that we can deploy up at Gillette as well. I mean, we were talking with the sergeants. On any given event, I only can pull 3 sergeants from my staff to be supervisors at a major event, because the other ones all have to work. Guess what? If it's on a Saturday, someone may have a plan. I may not get any of them to work, because they finally got a Saturday off. So, it's an issue. I know Stephanie said no more bodies. It's unsustainable.
No, but I'm willing to listen to that.
Okay.
I am. And, please, I don't want you to think that I came in here.
No. Unless the town solution is, maybe
I would
no
bust
more
your chops
events,
a
no
little
more
bit to
building,
get
no
to
more,
that.
no more housing. Like, we're going to get busier. We're growing as a community, It's, maybe the school population isn't taking off, but, even as a police department, we have 4,600 kids. you know, do you know how big that is because of the charter school?
Like with the mental health stuff, like I know, like I feel like the stuff that I have kids that are, you know, in the middle school, like it almost feels like it's stuff that like didn't even happen, you know, 20, 30 years ago. Like it's just
That's a tough,
everything
nowadays, that's a tough age.
Everything
The
is
night, the
so.
whole shift was tied up with one. Everyone was working. Every cop in Foxborough was on Payson Road with a walk away from a home that was, the entire shift, they were all there. They were there from when I left my house to when I pulled in here, including a stop downtown to change. So it's like a half hour, and who knows if it's been cleared up yet. So it's.
And, you know, talking about mental health, like, let's not forget your mental health too. Like, you guys see stuff that, like, I don't see at my work. Like, you know, thinking back to this weekend, like, I don't know. You know, it's just putting it all out there that, like, forced overtime and everything like that. You know, it all has a cost.
As Seth said, the call per officer. By the way, that's, if you have a car accident, that's only one call. Guess what? 3 officers went to the call. That number is really small. Like, that number actually is compounded at how many calls they're going to. Because our SOPs, domestics require 2. Mental health, they require 3. Alarms, you have a primary, you have a secondary. So it's only one call, but multiple officers are responding to it as well.
But I think on the flip side too, we want to make sure our taxpayers aren't supplementing, you know, the stadium events. We want to make sure that we have something that works, you know, for both sides.
So on this, on the whole, you know, and again, I'm back to the 4 positions. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't know what one police officer does for me. Really, it puts another body on a shift. I can't make a lieutenant with 1 position because, you know, you just can't make command staff and not have, you know, troops on the ground. They're the backbone of the agency. If you're really trying to look at, but the lieutenant position, number 1 is we have internally other obligations within the agency administratively that we have to do as a police agency as well. Like oversight with accreditation, things like that. And I'm not saying that that would be specifically, but if you look at Lieutenant Fitzgerald and you look at Lieutenant Chamberlain's duties and span of control, like how many people can you oversee before you start to lose touch? The job has just changed. The requirements, the state law has changed, and we're just busier. But what we are doing is we're not dropping the ball on not one aspect of policing to the residents. We are not. There is nothing that is being missed, and we're actually increasing our services on a regular basis. We don't get to fail.
Well, that's
we don't
what
get to come up short.
That when I looked at that number, I thought that was an all-in number, that 27,000. Like I thought that was Patriot Place, Gillette, you know, that's what I didn't realize until then. I think you said that. You said that those numbers there were straight police.
Calls for service, it's one tool to measure what your agency is doing. You know, the CAD system doesn't allow us to break it down hours at a call because, believe it or not, our officers go to a call, they handle the call. They're still working on the call, but we clear them from the screen because they have to go back, they have to do follow-ups, but they get sent to other calls, so we got to clear them right away. Ideally, in a bigger department, you're on a call, you go back, you stay on the call until it's finally cleared. Could be 4 hours later. Our officers just work off the clock. And just because we don't have any extra bodies, you can't look at the dispatch screen and say 4 officers tied up booking an OUI, we have no one to send. What do? They're available, so they're not on the call. So that's another dynamic of building a budget based on hours and resources. Again, I can't do that with 4 police officers on the road. It's just, you know, that's a bare minimum.
Well, as much you may not realize it, Chief, I can't make that decision. You can make that decision, but when I sit up here, as long as I feel like I did my duty and grilled you a little bit and got the information out, then I can have a clear conscience. You know what I'm saying? So I can't tell you what your need is, only you. So I have to sit here and say, okay, like I said, I had a couple of people reach out to me already, so now at least I can go back and say, well, Chief gave us the numbers.
So my need is 4 positions, Stephanie.
So what do you want me to give you for? Is that what you're asking?
You asked
No,
me
I'm just teasing.
You want me to tell you what I needed?
Yeah. Well,
You know, just coming back to the overtime and an offset of some kind, just to show that you're meeting us halfway. Because I think at the town meeting, you know, that's the kind of thing that people are going to want to hear.
Yeah, but I don't know what that number is. I can't adjust it if I don't have bodies. You know? I can't make a prediction.
Well, it's managing to a target. I mean, I've been through this a million times, you know. You can't really pin down over time.
And by the way,
anyone who says they can, they're not being
the town gets every penny of it back. It never gets wasted. So if it doesn't get spent, it never gets blown on something that isn't needed.
Yeah,
Every hour is spent on the schedule doing a duty.
Right, well, I think part of it is we're paying the price for the couple of years with COVID and no positions and all of that. And now we find ourselves in a position where you probably need the 4. No, I don't think anyone's debating whether you need the 4, but maybe it's a bridge year, you know? And maybe during the bridge year, we do attack the revenue side and we put some of these issues in front of the Patriots in terms of the pilot and, you know, what we're getting for the services. You would need to help us with that argument. But I think you have a compelling argument in terms of the value that they're getting from the town and what they're paying. You know, but I think we need time. If we're going to do that, we need time to put that together.
Because my job is to give you a difficult proposition, and now you have to kind of work
Did a
through
good
it.
job with me, he did a good job with them.
You're tough, Bill, honestly. Like, he just cuts. He just cuts.
Listen, and I don't just cut for it without.
No. It's out of respect
it's
of
a
what the
discussion
budget
of purpose,
guidelines
though.
were.
It's a discussion of purpose. It's not just cut for the sake of cutting. That's why I presented the 2 additional positions, the 6th position, because they were needed, in my opinion, based upon the compelling presentation that you, the fire chief, and the DPW director made.
So if you take the 33 police officers, we got one of those positions because of Splitsville. We went up to 34. The charter school at one point funded a half of police officer, so we increased our staffing by 1, and the town absorbed the other half of it. When Chief Baker was here, he got a lieutenant's position. Was it 5-6 years ago? Which brought us to 36. And then we went to Semrick. And the police department received an additional 3 positions to offset or leverage their staffing in order to keep the station open. In order to make it cost effective. I think we can all sit here and say, without a doubt, that the Semrick operation has been beyond a success. It is beyond anything that we ever expected in the delivery of services and the money saved to the community. But some of the police department had to be leveraged in order for that to work by assigning someone to the station officer, which pulled someone off the road. So that's been the only growth in 11 years.
There's no dispatcher, I think I remember that, how that worked.
No.
Because you were losing dispatchers.
Yeah, 9 dispatchers.
So you had to, somebody has to be manning.
Yeah, and.
Yes.
The station, right.
So that was, someone came off the road, so you got another, that's how you got another, but you didn't, all you did was have to put somebody in a position where you lost somebody.
I lost 2.5 positions, believe it or not.
But he could have used more, but there was no ability to do more at the time. And he's been arguing for more throughout, as the other departments have as well, but direction was, no, and I understood it, and I'm not denying the fact that it was not the right decision to make under the circumstances, but I will tell you that we can't continuously say no. It has to come down to what's the need of the operation, what's the need of the town. And that's where we're at.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your time. It was exciting. Hopefully there's no one behind us. We far exceeded every timeline. I'm going to blame Kenny on this, just to let you know.
I'll take a secretary. If
Did you feel the bus run over your face on that one?
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right, so we have the town manager's update and selectmen's update left. That's it.
All right,
I think they're pretty quick.
I'll go pretty quick. So, general update, we're still chasing some results of grants that we're supposed to receive. I am going to have a meeting this week with folks on the sewer issue up on Route 1. We're going to have a conversation with other town managers in the area, with Congressman Auchincloss on the 6th about that issue, to see how we might address that over the long term. The recruitment update, Barbara Donahue, who is the new Assistant Treasurer Collector, she'll be starting on March 13th. Tracy Barney is the new Collections Coordinator. She started yesterday. Olivia Alves is the new Procurement Administrator. She'll be starting on March 27th. And a part-time Collections Coordinator has been posted. It will be posted along with the Recreation and DPW seasonal employees as well. The Capital Planning Committee is meeting this Saturday, March 4th at 8:30. We think we're going to do that remotely, given the fact there was some weather coming up. But I think the one thought that we're going to talk a little bit tomorrow about whether or not we're going to make final decisions at the meeting on the capital plan. We may come back and then have a follow-up meeting with the committee to actually make the decisions after we go through the analysis and determine what the priorities are. So I think we did that. We actually did that last year. We didn't make the final decisions that day. We actually came back after we analyzed them, then came back with a secondary meeting to do that. That seemed to work pretty well. So we may do that again this year. The Fox and the Borough project update. I did meet with the folks from the Arts Council to talk about locations where the Fox and the Borough. Everybody familiar with that program, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to make sure you understood that. That is it's an arts in the community type project. I had some familiarity working on that same type of project in Dedham, only they use rabbits instead of foxes. And it's actually it's a fun project. It's something that that folks will take a real interest in once they see it actually take place. We were looking at locations, trying to be respectful of the common, because we know that there are things that we try to stay away from, but we are looking at areas around the common that could be good locations, so the foxes themselves do have adequate exposure for the program itself. I think that will summarize I guess I can hold off on anything else at this point in time. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to deal with it. I did note one thing, that Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll unveiled a $750 million tax package yesterday that has some really interesting components in it that will help our residents as well as residents in other communities dealing with a double circuit breaker program going from $1,200 to $2,400. Increase to the rental deduction, currently capped at 50% of rent, up to $3,000 or $4,000 at a cost of $40 million. Reforms to two taxes, which the state is currently an outlier, would reduce the short-term capital gains from 12% to 5%, and it would also eliminate the state tax for all estates valued at up to $3 million, with a credit of up to $182,000 for Massachusetts, as one of only 12 states that has an estate tax. So, and a double maximum credit of up to $12,000 for expenses incurred at a primary residence for repair and replacement of failed cesspool or septic system, which is an issue in this town, of course. And also some additional benefits for commuter rail and tolls, et cetera, that go along with the MBTA passes. So that just came in literally yesterday, so those are some of the latest things that we're dealing with. And I think that will wrap up my report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Bill?
No.
Okay. Just a couple reminders here on Selectmen's update. There's a rabies clinic coming up April 1st, and hazardous waste days coming up April 15th. I think those have gone out, at least by DPW. I don't know if they've gone on the town one, but they're coming. And then old business, we did have that candidate night. I know I was in talking to Bob or something. There are still a couple seats that no one's pulled papers for as of middle of last week. So nomination papers are available up until March 13th at 5 p.m. You can get information on the open seats, the process, the timeline is on the town's front page as well as the town clerk's page. So just another, you'll probably hear us do one more PSA for those, just since we have some seats with no one pulling in. Anything else from anyone?
Just want to say thank you to DPW and the facilities folks for getting the place open this morning. We were delayed by about an hour and a half, but everything was pretty safe, and they did a great job of keep cleaning the streets.
Yeah, the news was, Channel 7 was on the Common all morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were saying how nice the Common looked. It was nice to sit down and have your coffee and see that on the news, so
We had the ribbon cutting. We had the ribbon cutting for
Right.
the new
Yes.
news restaurant today.
Right? That's today,
No,
yesterday.
it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
I was like,
yeah.
whew.
I flew by
Yeah.
that already. Yesterday.
And that
I
food, the
couldn't
food
make it.
there is excellent.
Yeah, it's so nice to
It's
see
really, really
the,
good, yeah.
the Sal's and Mal's and the building owner
Yeah.
participating in that, and I love the handing of the business down, from one to the other as well, so if you haven't stopped in, definitely step in.
Food's outstanding.
All right, I think we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.